Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this evening's full council meeting. Can I wish you all a very happy new year? Can I convey congratulations of the council to both Judith Robinson and Salim Tariq, who were both recognised in the 2019 New Year's Honours List. Judith, who is a development librarian, has been awarded a British Empire Medal for services to public libraries, and Salim Tariq, former Kirklees Deputy Director of Children's Services, has been awarded an OBE for services to children's services. Can we give our congratulations to these? Would you like to stand up? We've just got Salim here. On behalf of the Council, as the Mayor, I will be sending a letter of condolence to the family of Nigel Gawthrope. He's the Mayor of Cambridge City Council, who sadly passed away suddenly last week whilst on holiday in South Africa. And can I also advise the Council of the death of Adrian Belden, who was a former Labour councillor for the Birkby ward. You can, Councillor McBride. Thank you.
I recently went to Adrian's funeral. Adrian, an interesting history about Adrian. He became a councillor by virtue of the fact that I was made ineligible by virtue of the Conservative Party saying that because I worked at the Polytechnic I shouldn't be allowed to be a councillor, despite the fact that the Polytechnic was about to become a corporation within a matter of weeks. However, and despite the fact what a High Court judge said was unreasonable, but however legal. Adrian Belden took my place. His wife was my agent in that election. Adrian was a lovely man, didn't particularly want to become a councillor, was willing to serve and when necessary. And that was really the story of his life. He was a sensitive man, one who wanted to give, and he was not wanting to seek attention. He gave, he was extremely skilled, he was a gentleman, a loving man, a careful man, and he's a big loss to the community in Kirklees, and particularly in Huddersfield. So I just want to pay tribute to the man.
Thank you, Councillor McBride, for those lovely words. Thank you. Please can I, as I always do, remind members about standards of behaviour in the Chamber, particularly with reference to showing respect to other councillors and to members of the public who may contribute to the meeting. I would ask members not to interrupt when contributions to discussions are being made by other people, and that councillors who wish to have conversations about business during the meeting do so outside the chamber, because it can be extremely distracting. May I also remind everyone present that the meeting is being webcast and the need for electronic equipment, especially mobile phones, to be used responsibly. There will be a break at approximately 7 p.m, but I need to remind you that item 15 must commence before 7 p.m. Thank you. I'm now going to pass over to the Chief Executive. I was going to pass over.
Excuse me, I know I'm not on camera. I'm supposed to be controlling this, but I'm going to make the announcement instead. So I just want to remind members that at item 11 on the agenda, which is the calculation of the council tax base, there is a section 106 Local Government Finance Act 1992 notice, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. This means that if you are 2 months or more in arrears with your council tax, you must declare that at this meeting as soon as practicable after its commencement. You may not vote on the matter, but you may speak if you wish to do so. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Pandor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, PR Rule 15.3, can I put to the Council that the motion on climate change be moved on the agenda so it's considered after agenda item 8. So can I have Council support on that, please? Thank you.
Thank you. So that's item 20. Is that seconded? Thank you, Councillor Sheard. Can we vote by a show of hands? Everybody happy to move that motion forward? I would say that's carried. Thank you. Councillor Lawson?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Under the same rule, I would ask that the motion on final say on Brexit deal is brought forward at the same time. It seems like that there would be no more apposite moment than right now to bring that forward, and I would ask for Council's support on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lawson. So that's to move motion 17 also to follow on after item number 8. Do we have a seconder for that, please? Thank you, Councillor Cooper. Please can we vote by a show of hands? Yep. Again, that's been carried, so we'll move that one as well. Make a note. Item 2. Are there any apologies for absence this evening? Councillor Sokol, please.
Madam Mayor, I haven't got any apology, but I got Councillor Paul Kane, who told me he might be a bit late, but because due to health, if he could not make it, so please accept his apology then. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sokol. Councillor Patrick, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Liss-Mage.
Thank you. Any more apologies? Councillor Cooper, please.
Councillor Allison and Councillor Stewart-Turner.
Thank you, Councillor Cooper. Any more apologies? No. Thank you. Item 3. I move that the minutes of the meeting of Council held on the 12th of December 2018 be approved as a correct record. Is that seconded? Thank you, Councillor Hussain. Please can we vote by a show of hands? That is carried. Item number 4. Members who have any interest should disclose their interest now. Are there any interests to declare? Councillor Bolt, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Item 10 on the agenda, which refers, as colleagues will be aware, to council tax on empty property. I have an other interest in that I have power of attorney for an empty property. So I don't own it, but I am legally responsible.
Thank you, Councillor Bolt. Councillor Smith, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I also have an interest in item 10, which I filled in the form. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Watson, please.
Likewise.
Yes. Can you actually verify what you mean by likewise, please, Councillor Watson?
The same as the previous comment, I have an interest in a property that is currently empty, but hopefully not to remain so.
Thank you, Councillor Watson. Any more declarations of interest? Please can I remind any members who have declared an interest to complete the form and submit to the clerk by the end of the meeting. Item 5, petitions from members of the Council. Are there any petitions from members of the Council? Councillor McQueen, would you like to bring that forward?
It's a petition asking for the retention of the library in longer.
Thank you, Councillor McQueen. Any more petitions from members? In accordance with Council Procedure Rule 9(3), I direct that the subject matter of the petition be referred to the appropriate Service Director for investigation. Item number 6, questions by members of the public. Are there any questions by members of the public this evening? Welcome to the meeting. Please can I ask that you introduce yourself, stating your name and to whom your question is addressed, and ask your question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My name is Alex Lukic. Obviously, I'm due to speak later in the petition debate. I just had a question for Councillor Pandor. During my deputation at the last council meeting, I invited you to apologise on behalf of the Labour group for a remark made on Facebook by one of your councillors that I was potentially winding up an anti-Muslim campaign. I take that as a very serious and unfounded personal allegation against me. I've not been approached by yourself since that meeting. I'd just like to invite you to comment on that.
Is it a question that you're asking?
Yes, I'd like to ask the Leader of the Council whether he is now ready to apologise or willing to apologise for
that. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, I find it quite strange and disrespectful, actually, that Mr. Lucic is actually here in this chamber when he himself should actually apologise to the many thousands of people that he has ratcheted up and creating division in our community. Madam Mayor, I have had so many complaints and so many people that have been distressed and so many people that have actually been concerned about the way Mr. Lucic has actually approached the issue. He needs to understand that we actually live in a democracy, and in this council chamber, the petition that you have actually generated on false pretences and misled thousands of people will be discussed. And let's make sure that we actually respect our democracy, and the debate will conclude. And we need to move forward from there, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pandor. Do you have a supplementary question, Mr. Lukic?
Thank you.
Thank you for attending the meeting and asking the question. Thank you. Any more questions from members of the public? No? Can I just ask for a bit of hush, please? There's a lot of mumbling and it's quite distracting. Thank you. Item 7, to receive deputations or petitions from members of the public. We have 4 deputations this evening. Can we have the first deputation, please? Welcome to the meeting. Please can you introduce yourself and the subject matter of your deputation? You have 5 minutes to present your deputation. Thank you.
Supporting the climate emergency motion today will be the first step to stop climate change destroying our world. If we don't act, natural disasters like hurricanes, floods will become more and more frequent.
Good evening, I'm Kieran Bally. We are here today to support the Kirklees climate emergency motion. This is through our concern for the future of our young people in Kirklees and around the world. Thank you for your leadership in putting this forward to the Council. We are asking that you support the motion today and ensure a timely debate and decision to respond to this grave emergency. Locally, the effects of climate change can already be seen with the increased frequency and severity of local flooding, numerous wildfires, including on Saddleworth Moor, droughts and nearly empty reservoirs. The UN IPCC report UN Intergovernmental Panel for Climate Change in October 2018 made it very clear that the world has only 12 years to act to avoid major catastrophe. The UN Secretary-General echoed scientific consensus when he said, "We face a direct existential threat." As Sir David Attenborough said in December, "Right now, we are facing a man-made disaster of global scale. Our greatest threat in thousands of years, climate change. If we don't take action, the collapse of our civilizations and the extinction of much of the natural world is on the horizon." The world's people have spoken. Their message is clear. Time is running out.
Good evening. My name is Ali Stouffer. This is an emergency. Climate change is happening right now, and it's the biggest threat to the human race. It's driving extreme weather conditions, causing severe storms, flooding, rising sea levels and drought, with subsequent problems of food security and migration. 3 years ago, in December 2015, the UK signed the Paris Convention about Climate Agreement, committing us to limiting the increase in global warming to well below 2 degrees. However, since then, the science is showing us that the world is in danger if warming is even reduced to 1.5 degrees, and we're now nowhere near achieving this. The window of opportunity for action to prevent climate change is closing rapidly. There are new opportunities, for example, in the growth of technologies, reduction in their costs, that are driving an acceleration in the switch, for example, from fossil fuels to renewable energies. Local government can be taking the initiative right now to reduce emissions. It's our moral duty and responsibility to act right now.
Hello, my name is Hugh Goldhorn, and I've been organising environmental campaigns for the Labour Party, both nationally and locally, in my hometown of Huddersfield for nearly 20 years. I'm here today because I've seen and heard about what civil society and local government are doing in other parts of the UK to address the climate emergency, and I believe that we can do the same thing here. Whether it is rethinking the way we look at waste or making it easier for everyone in our community to have the most efficient heating and housing appliances, there are things that we can do at a local level whilst our national government is in complete lockdown. At the end of the day, this isn't about money. It is about our collective will to be bold and to use all our resources in a way that places the needs of our children and our children's children ahead of our own. I hope you agree and that you will join with us and millions of others around the UK and around the world in declaring a climate emergency this evening. Thank you.
Excuse me. Sorry, can we ask them to come back in, please? Yes, you'd all just kindly come back in, thank you.
I didn't realise we had to stay.
Thank you. Can I ask Councillor Mather to respond? Thank you.
Thank you for your deputation on climate change. Thank you for, I forgot your name, sorry, the youngster. Joseph, thank you. It's very sweet of what you've said, and I'm glad that you came because, as you know from our agenda, we are going to be actually debating this motion in a little while. And you are welcome to listen to this debate, and I would say, and I can put it on record, that Kirklees is ready to step up and meet this challenge. We already do a great deal, and we're willing to look at more and innovative ways of preventing this catastrophe. Thank you.
Thank you for attending. Thank you. Please, can we have our second deputation? Thank you. Welcome to the meeting. Please can you introduce yourself and the subject matter of your deputation, and you have 5 minutes to present your deputation. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Councillors, thank you for the opportunity to present these petitions from the citizens of Almondbury. My name is Dr Mike Mitchell, and I'm accompanied by a colleague of mine, Rob Greenwood, who's a member of our committee. I'm chairman of the Almondbury Library Friends Association. It's an organisation which was set up 4 years ago to help retain and develop Almondbury Library in its present building. We've organised a number of successful community activities and events there, and for the last 2 years we've provided 50% of the staffing in the library through the recruitment and rostering of volunteer assistants. We've also taken over the maintenance of the grounds using volunteer Duke of Edinburgh students, some of whom have disabilities. The petitions from Almondbury residents object to the possible relocation of the library from the 1906 Carnegie building in Stocks Walk, where it currently is, to the former Sure-Start Centre off Northgate. Councillor Turner has assured us that the decision is not related to cost issues, and in fact the Council's own figures show the non-staff costs last year to be only around £11,000, and approximately half of that is the business rate allocation against the building. The building itself is in good condition and is fully accessible to the disabled. The proposed new location in the Sure-Start building has a poorly lit and unattractive access from Northgate and is in an area reputed to have drug dealing taking place on a regular basis. We have severe concerns that that will deter users and, for that matter, volunteers from continuing to participate in the library. The petitions that we submit ask that the library be retained where it is. Thank you very much, and my colleague would like to add a few words.
Yeah, just like to say, it might, sorry, it might, is that, yeah. No. Yeah, it might sound, sorry. Is that work? We're on, yeah. Yeah, it might sound perverse to be pushing for, remaining in an old building when there's a new building in the offing, but it's important to acknowledge the significance of the old building and its history, significance to the development of the library movement and Huddersfield in general. It was the first purpose-built library to be opened in Huddersfield, funded partly by Andrew Carnegie, as we've mentioned. But it's become like an integral part of the village and the service, to the point where, and it's probably unique in this respect, that the service and the building have become sort of indivisible. And I feel that by moving it, it's dislocating the service and failing to recognise the significance of that building to the community. Yeah, I think that's my joke point, I think. There's... Sorry. Yeah, there was a booklet on the history of the library published by Kirklees. I think it's probably out of print now, but we're probably going back 9 or 10 years here. But the council actually did fund this publication into the significance of the building.
Thank you. Thank you. Please can I ask Councillor Turner to respond? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Mr Mitchell and Mr Greenwood, for coming along this evening and showing your passion for your library in Almondbury. I'd like to recognise publicly the support we get from the volunteers, and we much appreciate that in the library service. You do a fantastic job, along with all the volunteers we have within the service these days. As you well know, I came and spoke to one of your groups just before Christmas. We had an open day at the new Sure-Start Centre, and we have done an exhaustive engagement process over the last few weeks, which we have now got the results. And what I can tell you, there's no decisions being made as yet, but on Monday I have a meeting with the Chief Librarian and the relevant director, where we'll discuss the results and the report's been prepared. And I got the report this afternoon. It's about 20-odd pages. I haven't had a chance to read it fully yet. So we will make a decision on Monday morning. Once we've gone through that report, once we've had a discussion, we will make a decision on whether we wish to move the library down to the new Shoe Start Centre. So, but thanks very much for coming along and sharing your passion. I know you're passionate, as I say. I was only with you just before Christmas. I know how strength of feeling, but we will make that decision on Monday morning at 10. Well, by 11 o'clock we're starting at 10 o'clock. So that's the process we're actually having now. So I really don't want to say any more until we've had that chance to go through that report in detail and discuss it between the three of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. Thank you for attending, gentlemen, to present your deputation this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, Turner, for those kind remarks. Thank you.
Our third deputation, please. Welcome to the meeting. Please can you introduce yourself and the subject matter of your deputation, and you have 5 minutes to present your deputation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Hassan Badat from Batley. I'm involved with various organisations. I'm particularly here as an independent resident, more than representing any groups or anything. My friend has come here just for moral support. And what I want to talk to relates to, broadly speaking, an agenda item you discussed at your last meeting on the 12th of December, namely inclusion and diversity. And I wanted to speak on a particular aspect of that. And I want to start by saying that roughly in 1994, a young boy in London, I think Tottenham area, called Stephen Lawrence, got horrifically murdered by a gang of youths. And it was found out later that that happened to be a case of institutional racism. That was following a subsequent report done at great lengths by somebody called Lord Macpherson. And he presented that report in 1999. And I wonder how much awareness members of the council here are aware of that, what it entails, what the council's responsibility is. What is it? Have you studied your papers, your policies, your guidelines, etc., etc.? It seems that there's not been too much more notice taken, even going back to just December 2017 in Bristol. Both Bristol Council, Avon and Somerset Council, and the Bristol Police were found guilty of racism, institutional racism, following a murder of a victim called Mr. Ibrahimi. I think he was a refugee from the Middle East. Most people, honestly, Madam Mayor, don't seem to understand exactly what institutional racism means. Never mind officers, many managers I've spoken to, not just in the council, but in other places, including the police authority, they seem to get on the defensive, saying, oh, we've not done this or we've not done that. The very fact about institutional racism is a person might not be aware that they are actually undertaking racism. It's to do with how their policies are, how the practice are, and whether it's different to indirect racism as well. I don't want to get too technical on it, but it's a new form that's been raised and flagged up by Lord Macpherson. And the reason I'm coming here now is, sadly, for austerity reason or whatever, we just don't have the infrastructure in place to challenge. I have personally witnessed many incidents where people have suffered institutional racism, but the infrastructure is not there to challenge it. In the olden days, we had Race Equality Unit, Kirklees Racial Equality Council, CRC, lots of community organisations had the resource, and it's just not there now. Legal aid is a completely different situation with its own set of rules as well. Now, on the other side, institutions, they're able to, rings around people who are suffering, because they are armed with substantial resources, including, legal support, legal advice. By definition, they employ that. So that places us at a disadvantage. That's one thing. But the fact is that it makes life horrible for people. And we shouldn't really have to wait for another person or two to be killed. My reason, I suppose, Madam Mayor, for coming here is to flag this up, to give notice that this cannot carry on forever and ever. There are so many incidents of institutional racism. I'm aware of the limitations of the presentation, so I can't directly name that, but I would be happy to, to flag that up and plead. I beg people from every party and every office, look into this, help us, because people out there are suffering. Whether you need to raise some kind of a working committee or whatever. What I do know is I listened attentively and I read the report on inclusion and diversity, and, you can give yourself rose mark or whatever, but that does not address the issue of institutional racism. And I would, please forgive me, I don't want to sound condescending, I won't be surprised if half the people here don't even know what exactly institutional racism means. I conclude there, Madam Mayor. Any questions? Fine.
Thank you, Mr Badat. Councillor Pandor to respond, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Hassan, for coming this evening, and thank you for the question. Let me start by saying I'm really pleased that you've actually read our report and you've actually taken it on board, because that is the whole purpose of writing reports around inclusion and diversity, because we don't want them to just gather dust, and you weren't here, but the debate that took place last council meeting, every single member from every single party in this council chamber was actually contributing really effectively. And the kind of issues you have raised on a general note, we are taking them on board. You referred to the Macpherson inquiry on the back of Stephen Lawrence's murder. Yes, I am aware of the report. I actually worked in organisations that actually help promote the findings of that report. But the circumstances around that report was very different, Madam Mayor. I hope to think that organisations have moved on a lot more, and this council chamber reflects that, I'd like to think. But thank you for your comments, and we will take on board the issues you've raised. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Panner. Thank you for kindly to present your deputation. Thank you. And we have a fourth deputation. Welcome to the meeting. Please can you introduce yourself and the subject matter of your deputation, and you have 5 minutes to present your deputation. Thank you.
Good evening, Lady Mayor. Before I start, I would like to thank you for this opportunity to address the committee. I'm Hanifa Darwan, and my issue is to kindly request Kirklees Council not to change its existing policy to serve non-student meat to schools due to the following reasons. No human being should be denied the fundamental rights and freedoms that everyone in the UK is entitled to. It is not compulsory for everyone in Britain to eat meat. It's a choice. Every human being has a choice as to whether they wish to partake in the suffering of animals used for food or not. However, we should all take responsibility to preserve the rights of others instead of wasting time on condemning other people's beliefs and choices. I think that everyone agrees that if we must kill animals for food, then it is our duty as civilized human beings to ensure that the animals are killed as quickly and humanely as possible. Those who want to outlaw non-stunned slaughter, arguing for a humane method of killing animals for food, are actually more concerned about the feelings of people than those of the animals on whose behalf they appear to speak. Non-stunned slaughter does does not try to deny that meat consumption means that animals have to die, but it is designed to ensure that their loss of life is achieved with a minimum amount of pain. However, it is quite impossible to know whether conventionally stunned animal is feeling pain or not. We do know, however, that millions of animals each year are misstunned through faulty stunning equipment or its misapplication to the animal. Some scientists and psychologists have expressed serious misgivings. Some are of the opinion that the animal is merely paralysed by the electric current and so prevented from making a sound or a movement while fully conscious and experiences great pain as the current passes through its body. We shouldn't condemn the choices of others. At the end of the day, meat stunned or non-stunned, the end product equals a dead animal. Also, many children will stop eating school meals if non-stunned halal meat is no longer provided. This could mean the closure of school canteens and or loss of jobs. Many children attending school will not have the chance to eat a hot meal when there is so much child poverty. If non-stunned halal meat is banned, it will lead to British farmers suffering massive financial losses, since many consumers will simply buy the same product that is already being imported locally from South America and Eastern Europe. Under the current Brexit climate, I'm not too sure whether it's going to go ahead or not. However, I am prepared. We have to ensure sustainability for the British economy and support local industry. If this is about cruelty, why are people silent and inactive on other animal welfare issues, for example, cruelty to animals in many industries? I don't want to take up any further of your time, so I won't name the industries. And I thank you all for listening, and thank you, Lady Mayor.
Are you wanting to add something because the 5 minutes was nearly up? About 30, yeah.
Of political capital made out of this, what I would say is people need to look at the alternative methods of funding and whether they are cruel or not. If the people are talking about humane animal welfare, then let's look at alternative methods. Is electrocution, bolt stunning, are we really saying that is humane? Let's look at all the methods, and then let's look at what is... If people want to come from that perspective, then let's look at all the aspects, all methods, and let's have a fair debate, rather than isolating one aspect of the slaughter method. Thank you. Apologies.
Thank you. Councillor Ahmed to respond, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Hanifa Derwan and Eunice Luna. I'll start off by saying I hope we can all agree in this chamber that we need to offer choice to our children across Kirklees, and that choice takes into full account of cultural and religious beliefs. I hope we can all agree in this chamber that provision of high-quality nutritious meals to our children is vital in aiding their development and well-being. Madam Mayor, if I could offer some context, Kirklees Council's policy in relation to halal meat was developed in 2006. A comprehensive consultation was undertaken with a variety of stakeholders, which included parents, students, head teachers, school governors and Muslim scholars. The outcome of this consultation led to the Halal Monitoring Committee becoming the accredited body. Halal meat meals provided by Kirklees Catering Services are from a Halal Monitoring Committee accredited abattoir. HMC only consider non-stunned meat to be halal. The HMC endorsement is regarded as the accepted standard amongst Muslim communities, resulting in demand for this status. Indeed, many schools use HMC accredited meat, including other councils in West Yorkshire. There are 196 schools in Kirklees. We provide a catering service to 167 of them. Of these, 43 serve halal meat. 17 of which do not offer a non-halal meat alternative, although there are vegetarian and fish options. This is identified clearly on the menus within these schools. We have 26 schools offering both halal alongside non-halal. The halal meat is labelled as such on the counters and served in red dishes with different utensils and cooked separately. This approach is endorsed by the Muslim Welfare Society. The remaining schools do not offer halal as a part of their provision. However, they do offer fish vegetarian options. Madam Mayor, we have been very clear that it is the responsibility of the schools to communicate with parents, pupils, with regards to the specific offer. However, due to the recent media coverage, some of it inaccurate, inflammatory, the Council has provided all schools with draft letters appropriate to their provision to issue to parents along with a letter to head teachers, reminding them of their responsibility to ensure their parents and children can make an informed choice. In conclusion, Madam Mayor, I've been deeply disturbed by some of the reporting questioning of this policy. People have talked about animal welfare. I look around this chamber and let me be really honest here. I wonder how many vegans are amongst us. For if we really had as our priority kindness towards other creatures, then we would all be enjoying our lentils and greens. The fact is, as a member of the public, we hope the animals we eat are being cared for and then slaughtered humanely. As a member of the Council and as a Cabinet lead for schools, I insist that this is the case, taking into account the requirement of faith groups. Finally, we all have a responsibility as politicians, as journalists, to be careful of the language we use. Words matter. There are those who are seeking to exploit the issue of halal meat. The same people are attacking halal meat and are also attacking my brothers and sisters of the Jewish faith and their rightfulness need for kosher meat. When will this end? The same people who choose to ignore the fact that high street fast food chains serve halal meat to all who enter their doors. The same people who have chosen to make this about race, religion and divisions. I am not suggesting those people are in this chamber, Madam Mayor, but I have to report that those of the Muslim faith attending schools have felt targeted and vulnerable because of this unseemingly and unnecessary row. This is not right, and for that reason alone, we now need to move on. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ahmed, and thank you for attending to present your deputation this evening. Thank you. Are there any petitions from members of the public this evening? No. No. Item number 8. Following the submission of petitions which exceeded 3,000 signatures in respect of the subject matters of 1, the serving of non-stalled halal meat in Kirklees schools, and 2, the impact of introducing car parking changes in Cleckheaton Town Centre, the petition debates will now take place. Firstly, I shall invite the organiser of the first petition, Mr Alex Lukic, to make a representation to the meeting for a maximum of 5 minutes, and then Council may debate the petition for a maximum of 15 minutes. Mr Lukic, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just want to also place on record my thanks to the previous speakers. That deputation, it's not easy to stand here. I think they put their points across very well. It has been British law for 85 years that livestock must normally be stunned before being slaughtered. Animals reared for food normally have the right to be rendered unconscious at the time they are killed so that they don't suffer unnecessary pain and distress. Our laws have always upheld religious freedom towards methods of slaughter. Animals can be legally slaughtered without stunning for consumption by followers of Islam and Judaism, as has already been mentioned. But what we've come to discuss this evening is a petition signed by thousands of local residents who are dismayed that their council has chosen to pursue a policy that sponsors and normalises non-stun slaughter by serving meat produced by this method in local schools. Religious and cultural practices must always remain open to challenge and debate in a healthy democracy, and public bodies should never assume that religious and cultural requirements supersede other important factors such as the welfare of animals. These non-stun options are claimed to be necessary for Muslim pupils, but 80% of certified halal meat in Britain comes from suppliers who do stun, and so it would be suitable and more ethical to provide these meat products instead. There is widespread international concern at the suffering caused by non-stun slaughter. Several European nations do not allow a religious exemption to pre-stunning at all. Here in Britain, the RSPCA and the British Veterinary Association both campaign for a complete ban of the practice. We are all now aware that Kirklees Council fails to provide stunned meat options in 16 of its schools, or 17. This aspect of the present situation concerns us the most, as the religious exemptions to stunning are obviously not intended to lead to children who do not follow these religions being served non-stunned meat products at school. The Council has consistently failed, until recently, to provide clear information to families on the type of meat being served. This means that families have been led into consuming products of non-stun slaughter without their knowledge. Since this lack of information came to light, the Cabinet has tried to pass the blame onto the schools. But it is the Council that runs the catering service, and it is the Council that provides the menus for families to consider. It is the Council that is ultimately accountable. The Council does not state on its menus or anywhere on its website that the religious options only include non-stunned meat products. Why would the Council not include this information to ensure that every family can make an informed choice? Is the Council not completely comfortable with advertising that this is the only meat provided in 16 local schools? The Food for Life Served Here award that the Council does proudly advertise on its school menus requires that the Council, quote, ensures that the food offered reflects all relevant dietary and cultural needs. We consider that Kirklees is not adequately providing for the needs of pupils at those 16 schools who do not require products of non-stun slaughter. I have written to the Soil Association, which audits the Council's Food for Life award, on this matter. Their senior compliance officer has informed me that they will be considering this issue, and they will be contacting the Council's catering service in due course. They have highlighted to me their Labelling Matters campaign, which calls for clear method of production labelling on all meat and dairy products. In addition to this development, it must also be considered that the Council's failure to provide stunned meat products in some of its schools only serves to strengthen the case for a blanket nationwide ban of non-stun slaughter, as this may be the only way to ensure that this is not allowed to continue. The Council surely does not support such a change in the law. Having recently marked the 85th anniversary of our first law requiring stunning before slaughter, we hope that councillors will now recognise that they should stop sponsoring and normalising less humane methods. Taking this step would mean a significant improvement for the welfare of the animals slaughtered for school meals in Kirklees. It would also ensure that the long-standing religious exemption in British law
30 seconds,
is
Mr.
no longer.
Lukic.
It would also ensure that the long-standing religious exemption in British law is no longer undermined in our borough. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Lukic. Can I now invite Council for comments, please? Remember, a maximum of 15 minutes. Anyone wishing to speak? Councillor Pattison, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It is with some great sadness that I'm standing here today to defend the policy of providing halal meat in schools. The petition that was circulated, that has resulted in this debate, states that everyone has the right to observe and practice their religion in a free society. And that is exactly what Kirklees Council has been given to pupils of Muslim and Jewish faith since 1992. I was working with schools and the education service at that time, and I'm well aware of the controversy that surrounds halal meat, and in particular stunned and non-stunned meat. But at that time and since then, We have been working hard to give schools control over many aspects of their school life, and in particular school meals. As I say, it was not, the policy was not agreed without some full consideration of all the issues. And as Councillor Ahmed has said, schools are responsible for managing this policy, and there is a full range of choices for all pupils. This policy, which has been reviewed twice in the 25 years since it was agreed by all parties in this chamber, has been maintained without issue. So what is different now? What has changed? What has brought about this petition? I'm not one to say that things should stay as they are. If it's not broke, don't fix it. But why should we review this policy again? It's not against the law to provide, purvey or consume halal meat, stunned or non-stunned. It has always been a contentious issue, and I am conscious that there is a body of opinion that says that it's cruel to animals to slaughter them, at least without stunning them first. But the government has allowed concessions when it comes to halal meat on the grounds of religious belief. So which does override that argument? Kirklees has no reason not to fall in with that ruling. Schools now have even more control than they did back in those days to provide the school meals and to manage them. This authority has less and less say over how schools are run, and in particular when they are academies. So again, I say, why now is this argument being made? Is it possibly that this is seen by some as a politically acceptable football? Is the reason for concern behind this petition one of perceived inequality, that one religious group or ethnic minority is being favoured, or dare I say it, pandered to? Not my words, I hasten to add. But why would you want to suggest that this is the case? In whose interest is this? Can I suggest that it's in the interest of those that seek to take advantage of the divided society that we so unfortunately find ourselves in at the moment, and to use that to strengthen their own position? Calling for this legal practice, managed effectively by schools, does not impose anything on anyone that they do not want. Is about stirring up hatred and resentment, and not about trying to bring together all communities in one harmonious society, communities of all religions and faith. So I am sad that the climate in our society today now gives some people the confidence to behave in this divisive and despicable way.
Thank you, Councillor Pattison. Can I just remind you again, we've only got 15 minutes, and I'm going to use my discretion and make sure that someone from each party just get the chance to speak. So if I don't call your name, I apologise. Councillor Lawson, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can I start by thanking the members of the public, the signatories of the petitions, who've all come today and who've been involved in both sides of the debate. We have to be here. They chose to come here. They chose to be involved because they're passionate about what they're campaigning for. It's to be commended. I'll start by making a couple of comments. We're not here to decide if animal welfare trumps the right to practice a religion. Both are enshrined in law. It is not in our gift to change either or restrict either, nor should it be. Those discussions are for the lawmakers. It's also not in the Council's gift to prevent schools from serving non-stunned halal. If you've come here tonight expecting that result, you won't get it. It's not going to happen. Firstly, I'd also comment that from the petition in front of us, I believe that only the current Cabinet can actually change policy to stop the Council supplying non-stunned halal meat to schools. Whether they do that or not today depends on if they feel as though they have enough evidence and information at their disposal. I suspect from a 15-minute debate they will not. It's difficult then to see how the supplying to schools issue can be resolved today given these restrictions. The animal welfare side of this petition, however, should be a wake-up call to Council and a reminder of its responsibilities in ensuring that all school meals have the highest possible standards of animal welfare.
Since my time in council, I can only remember one discussion on the quality of animal welfare in the production of meat fed to our children. I think it was a bit of a side issue at the time. It's perhaps high time that we had another look at how our suppliers are sourcing the meat, dairy and eggs they provide. Many of us in this chamber make choices in the shops based on halal or kosher, free range or organic products. These factors should be a consideration in our policies also. I'd add that actually I'd want to see meat-free days as and an increase in the ratio of vegetarian food on offer included in this discussion, so it would align with our green agenda that we're going to come on to later. I'd end by making two observations. First, schools must be transparent in all their dealings with all parents. That goes for meals too. The second is that if it chooses to, Cabinet can support schools in that by performing its own wider school meal audit so that parents have all the information available to make their own informed choices. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lawson. Councillor David Hall, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's obvious we should start to say that this is a matter of great sensitivity to a lot of people because it will affect one group more than others, and it would be silly to deny that it will. But it is an issue for all of us to consider. And I'm hoping that the debate that we have in the short time we've got will generate more light than heat. I think everyone here supports the right of parents to choose halal meat for their children if they so wish for religious reasons. And Kirklees schools should continue to serve halal meat to those who want it. We understand it is a very important religious requirement for our Muslim families, and we assure you that we have great respect for that. However, on animal welfare grounds, our majority view is that meat served in Kirklees schools should be from pre-stunned animals. This for us is an issue of animal welfare only. There's been already mention about the RSPCA's stance. They have said that killing animals without first stunning them does cause unnecessary suffering. Similarly, the British Veterinary Association has called for all animals to be effectively stunned before slaughter. The Farm Animal Welfare Council says that cutting an animal's throat, and I quote here, is such a massive injury that it would result in very significant pain and distress in the period before insensibility supervenes. And some of us may have seen videos of this happening. I confess I have not. I find that kind of thing, I'm a bit squeamish, so I prefer not to watch. But I know some of the people in this chamber have seen this firsthand, and it is not pleasant. In British law, of course, we have an exemption for ritually slaughtered animals, and the Department for the Environment and Food and Rural Affairs says that all animals must, you must stun all animals before you slaughter them, unless the animal is being religiously slaughtered for halal and kosher meat. But also that religiously slaughtered meat in this regard must be intended for consumption by Jews or Muslims. And that's a very important thing that's often overlooked. Other countries are now rescinding their exemptions for non-stunned ritual slaughter, such as Denmark, Switzerland, Sweden, Norway and Iceland. Some of the most liberal of European countries, in fact. And closer to home, Lancashire banned the procurement of unstunned meat in schools. It's a fact now, I think, that the vast majority of British Muslims will accept pre-stunned halal meat as long as it is done in a certain way, which conforms to certain standards. And the Food Standards Agency have now said that 84% of animals slaughtered by halal method were stunned before slaughter, and this is an increasing proportion. Now, I'm grateful to Councillor Holmes for her research on this. She's looked into this long and hard, and I know talked to people on both sides of this argument. And there was a policy in 2005 which said that schools should ensure that pupils whose parents do not wish their children to take halal meats do not take them. And that do not was underlined, and subsequently that was taken out of the policy. But I think there is a greater issue at stake here. And we're all sure you would agree that Kirklees pupils, regardless of religion, should have an equal meals offer, and the authority should show respect for the need for Muslims to be able to follow their religious belief. All our children deserve to be treated fairly and equally in this regard. A consultation, I think, is long overdue, and Councillor Patterson said, well, what's changed? Well, I think people's views have changed, actually. So we would ask two things. Firstly, that wherever Kirklees has influence...
30 seconds, Councillor Hall.
Thank you, that it prefers pre-stun meat and only serves pre-stun meat. But furthermore, that perhaps the Cabinet would take a long look at a consultation of this, which is overdue. Just to finish off, Madam Mayor, my group does not seek to gain any political capital out of this issue, and I deplore those who are trying to turn one community against another. That's not what this debate is about. And I hope my comments will be taken in the manner they are intended, as a valid contribution to this debate, just as I recognise the sincere expressions of those who take a different view. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Cooper, please.
I'm not a vegan or a vegetarian, so though I recognise the importance of animal rights, I can't claim to be a committed animal rights activist. But are the people behind this petition animal rights activists? So we have the issue before us regarding the use of non-stun meat in schools, and it is a legitimate issue for discussion. I feel that committed animal rights activists might advise more recent converts to the cause to take a more holistic approach to questioning animal welfare in our food industry. Now, I'm well aware that this is being presented as an issue about choice and allowing pupils to choose an animal welfare-friendly option. But there are many choices that we have to make in the food that we eat. Do we eat meat from sentient animals who have lived most of their lives in conditions where they're unable to move and spend their living moments in discomfort and pain? Surely how animals live is at least as important as how they die. And what about the egg industry, where live day-old male chicks of no value to the producers are put on a conveyor belt and then chopped up in a macerator? So there are lots of choices to make if we really care about animal rights. The issue before us is about one aspect of animal welfare in our food system among many. As I'm sure you'll not be surprised to hear, this issue is particularly relevant to certain sections of the community due to their religious and cultural background. Now, if the same people bringing this petition start to champion other choices we have to make in the food we eat, rather than those affecting particular communities, then I may really believe they have a genuine concern for animal welfare, rather than simply being people only interested in animal welfare as it relates to a particular community.
Thank you, Councillor Cooper. Can I ask Councillor Pandor to comment on the issues raised?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I thank all the leaders and opposition members for their contribution, and it has been measured. But, Madam Mayor, I think I need to actually just go one step further without making it into a political issue, and that's where I need to start, Madam Mayor. The issue that's come to Council is on the back of animal welfare. Really, if that was the case, then the issues that Councillor Cooper talked about would be driving the debate rather than religion, race and hatred driving the debate. The facts, Madam Mayor. Councillor Patterson mentioned that the policy has been around for a number of years and the policy was adopted across all administrations. So I'm sure, with the knowledge we have in this council chamber, all the issues around animal welfare would have been addressed. In terms of the facts around the schools, Madam Mayor, I think we need to understand 43 schools receive halal meat, which is part of the contract that we actually provide. 17 schools do not have halal meat as an alternative. Now, there is a reason for that, because the 17 schools have predominantly Muslim children. Conversely, the same applies where there are no Muslim children. So there is no option other than a single menu, which is non-halal meat. So how do you draw the line there? Madam Mayor, I feel that this debate had been generated deliberately on the back of creating divisions, hatred, and putting communities against one another. The people who are behind this, the minority, the very, very small minority, what they are doing is they are taking advantage of our communities and they are playing with their fears and their feelings on an issue that is so deep that we cannot afford this council chamber to actually be fooled into a situation where we create a scenario that we cannot control. We haven't received any complaints from any parents, from any school. However, if people want to write to me directly, I am prepared to listen and look at this. So on what basis do I start to review the policy? If public opinion has changed, then a mere whim of petitions will not actually convince me, Madam Mayor. To appease the moral outrage that is politically motivated will not convince me, Madam Mayor. Because to me, our communities matter a great deal. It doesn't matter what religion you are, it doesn't matter what background you come from, or what culture you are belonging to. I need to make sure that our communities thrive and flourish together. So, Madam Mayor, the answer has to be no. I cannot take the commitment to ask my Cabinet to review a policy that has actually been through this Council over 2 decades across all parties, who I value would have exercised their wisdom and knowledge to actually keep community cohesion and community harmony. It's really sad that we've actually come to this council chamber and the communities have ratcheted up themselves in such a way that it could actually create unpleasant and further divisions. I don't want that, Madam Mayor, and I'm sure nobody in this chamber does. Kirklees is very diverse. We have different areas, different communities, and that is our strength. That is what we need to actually get behind. And that is the only way we'll move forward. I respect all religions, Madam Mayor. We all respect all religions. We respect people of faith and no faith. And to conclude, Madam Mayor, I cannot commit my Cabinet or myself to review this policy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Pandor. Can I thank Mr Lukic again for his representation? And I move that the matters raised within the debate be received and noted. Can I advise Council the petition organiser, Mrs Stephanie Tague, is unable to attend the meeting and therefore Council will go straight into a 15-minute debate on the Clackheaton car parking issue. Councillor Pinnock, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. To quote Councillor Pandor, Kirklees is very diverse, including towns of various sizes, all of which are different in their own way. And this petition was presented to the Council because the traders in our town centre were very concerned and remain concerned that parking charges would have a detrimental impact on their businesses. The majority of the businesses in our town centre, this isn't true everywhere, are local people who live locally or have other businesses locally. So the impact of any sort of change in the financial environment of the town could have quite an impact, and they, of course, are very concerned and they have a vested interest, if you like, in making sure that their financial viability is not upset. The remarks I'm making today are based on conversations I've had with Stephanie Tague over a number of months, and I will try and represent what the traders had to say to me and my colleagues, because she's not been able to be here. There is a lot of research that's been done on the financial health of small towns, and most of it tends to show that where the and in some cases critically, the financial health of the town is dependent on the sort of regime that's used there for parking charges. Now, in some cases, you have places which are tourist centres, and therefore you need some way of ensuring turnover in the car parks. That isn't true everywhere, and it's certainly not true of Cleckheaton, which has, if you like, an over-provision of parking spaces for the general day-to-day needs of the town centre. And this will also be true of some other places in Kirklees. As I say, there is a surplus, and I would go so far as to say that if you have a surplus, you do not need to create turnover by imposing charges, because it's not necessary. That's not special pleading. That's a sort of basic fact, if you like. Consider this: that if a business, say a start-up in a town centre, is on the margins of viability, then any change in their financial regime, in other words, well, it's not just that, it's also the ability of people to come in and shop at that shop. If there is a change, then that could deter some people, and could, in extreme cases, cause the business to fail. Now then, whether the council is considering the introduction of charges in places other than where they exist already, or not, the point of the petition was to say to the council, we here in Cleckheaton don't want it because of all the reasons that I've mentioned.
30 seconds, Councillor Pinnock.
Thank you. And I suppose the other point that I need people to consider is the income from car parking charges, is that more important than the financial health? Sorry, the financial viability of a town centre, and because the two aren't necessarily compatible.
Thank you, Councillor Pinnock. Councillor Pandor, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, last year there were a lot of noises made that we were going to introduce car parking charges. But let me assure everybody in the council chamber, we are not going to impose car parking charges in Cleckheaton. I don't understand the difference, Madam Mayor, and we won't.
Thank you, Councillor Pandor. Councillor David Hall, please.
Whippy! I am pleased to hear it. It's not just Cleckheaton, actually, is it? You know, we look at the other small towns, and unfortunately, you know, over a period of 10 years now, we've seen Dewsbury left to rot, we've seen Huddersfield left to rot. Awful news about Marks and Spencer's this week, and you just wonder where next. Cleckheaton, Birstall, Murfield, Meltham, Holmfirth. We really need some action in these small towns. And can I just use this opportunity to call on the Cabinet, as part of their budget setting, which will happen, I think, in the next couple of weeks, to actually commit to a regeneration strategy that covers the whole of the borough and not just Dewsbury and Huddersfield. And if you want an example of one policy which puts one community against another, it is that one. Because there is a huge part of this borough which sees complete inaction on the things that they are worried about in their particular area. And it needs to be backed by some money. Well, Councillor Pandor, you've got the opportunity, you've got a budget coming up. This is going to be a Labour budget, you've told us, a Labour budget. So why not show us that you actually care?
Councillor Hall,
about...
you are talking about parking charges, aren't you?
Oh, yes. Oh, it slipped my mind, Madam Mayor.
Yeah.
Yes.
And in a specific place within
Oh, yes,
Kirklees.
that slipped my mind as well. I do apologise. So please commit to a proper regen strategy with some money behind it.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Councillor Bolt, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And following the rapturous applause you got for mentioning Cleckheaton, may I invite you, therefore, to give the same assurance. Mirfield Town Council undertook a consultation and paid for the traffic regulation order which brought in limited parking to stimulate the economic viability of our shops. So can I ask you, in the same way you gave Cleckheaton an assurance that you will not be imposing car parking charges, will you give that assurance to the people of Mirfield?
Thank you, Councillor Bolt. Councillor Bellamy, please.
And just to add to that, can I have the same assurances for Slathwaite as well before I bring you the petition for the Corn Valley?
Councillor Turner, please.
Can I just assure everybody, wherever they want to mention, that there's no charge is going to be imposed anywhere. So if any, just say he's getting up, say anywhere else you like, no charges. There's no doubt a long list.
Councillor.
Can I have that repeated, please? No charges anywhere. No charges anywhere.
Okay, folks. Councillor Sheard, please.
Not wanting to distract from the budget decision that we have made, that we're not introducing charges to any new areas. But I think someone's got to say that we've got to address this, is that each area is different. Yeah. Each area is totally different, and in some areas you need car parking charges to manage the spaces. I think Councillor Pinnock right when he said about the provision. There's no point in taking parking charges away from an area that has got 100% occupation, because that's not going to bring any new people into the town whatsoever. And people talk about free parking. There is no such thing as free parking. The shopkeepers who are in big centres like Whitegates pay through their rents for the car parking. Car parks are rated everywhere. Someone's paying rates, someone's maintaining the car parks, and someone's paying for it. The developers of shopping centres do not do it out of generosity, and do not do it without getting something back for it. So there's no such thing as free parking. Somebody is paying for it. But I think you've got to be aware, and I think be cautious, because there's a lot of mythology about saying if you have free car parking, everything's fine. It is not true. And in some of you look at some of the most successful shopping centres in this area, which is Leeds, have got massive car parking charges. Manchester, massive car parking charges. So the car parking charges are used in many cases to manage the car parking, because otherwise people wouldn't be able to park. And I think it becomes a problem when people are using car parking to drive off somewhere else, to leave the car there the full day. So I think we've got to be... I think the budget decision is right, but I think we can't let it go that there is no situation where parking charges are applicable. Because what would happen in many cases, if you lifted all car parking charges, all the car parks near the town centre, which shoppers want to use, would be filled instantly by shopkeepers in the morning. And the shoppers would not have any car parking. So I think charging is one way of managing them. Time restrictions is another way of managing as well. And I think we've got to keep all that thing to keep towns vibrant. People have got to be able to park. It's not the charge; it's availability and ease of parking. And many studies have been done throughout the world, not just in this country, about the effect of car parking. And the biggest effect on car parking is the ease of car parking rather than charge. And that's what puts people off if they can't find somewhere to park that's convenient. So, I mean, I think that, again, As I think people will know, I've got a very strong view about the fact that many disabled badge holders take place all the time, that doesn't, and stay there all day, that doesn't allow shoppers to bring in and make a town vibrant. So I think parking is always up for review, but we shouldn't discount any methods of managing car parking to ensure that towns stay vibrant.
Thank you, Councillor Sheard. Thank you, members. I move that the matters raised within the debate be received and noted. It's fast approaching 7 o'clock, so we do need to start the key discussion on the council waste strategy. So I'm going to start that now, but now I'm going to adjourn for a 20-minute break, and we will come back and go to item 15, and then we will go to item 20, and then to 17. Okay, do you follow that? With me? You with me? We will now have a 20-minute break. Thank you.
All right.
Right, we're going to carry on now with item 15. We will then follow with the motions that were proposed to be moved forward, item 20 and 17. But I do need to remind members that item 10 and item 11 must be completed this evening before we leave. Okay. Item 15, key discussion. Can we have a bit of hush, please? Key discussion topic. This evening's key discussion will be council waste strategy. Council will receive a presentation from Carl Battersby, Director of Economy and Infrastructure, prior to the key discussion debate. Can I please ask Councillor Mather to introduce the item?
Madam Mayor, the central government published a new resources and waste strategy in December of last year. It introduces a huge step change for national direction on subjects of waste management, including waste prevention and minimisation, reuse, recycling, recovery and disposal. Carl will explain these changes and what they mean to Kirklees. For example, a clearer direction on our statutory obligations to enable England to meet its target of 50% recycling by 2020 and 55% by 2025. The challenge arises in funding and managing these changes within our communities. We welcome the strategy as it provides a more ambitious and positive direction and enables the Council to manage waste in a more sustainable way. The 2-year delay has, in fact, meant that our environmental services are behind a position of its improvement. Hence, there are plenty of detailed work which has to be gone through to progress throughout 2019, resulting in a new recycling and waste strategy for Kirklees. In the meantime, we wanted to keep all of you informed of central government's expectations for delivery in the near future. I acknowledge, and I do this because at last council I was told that I was too proud of the service despite its issues. I acknowledge that the service does not perform as it should and will need to work hard in order to improve the service so that it's ready for the changes to come. Kirklees' latest recycling rate is 27.2% for 2017 and 18, and our waste PFI contract coming to an end between 2023 and 2028. Kirklees will be more capable of making changes to its curbside bin collection services. Apart from the usual concerns It's an opportunity for Kirklees to reconsider delivery of its recycling and waste collection services, a service most visible to all our residents. Given the large disparity between our recycling rate and the national target, we need to accelerate our efforts to build on the growing expectations of the Council and our residents to help deliver a higher recycling rate. These short-term recycling projects will make a small improvement to recycling, but will help set the foundations of education to residents on waste minimisation and reuse. The motion on climate change today demonstrates the renewed importance of environment, and I hope members will support that, as it includes a commitment to significantly improving our recycling. I'll now pass over to Carl, who will provide further information. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity this evening to speak about the waste strategy. So, what I'd intended to cover this evening was a bit of a summary about the National Resources and Waste Strategy that came out on the 18th of December. Flavour of some of the things we've been doing in Kirklees to try and improve our recycling rate. And as Councillor Mather said, we are significant improvement needs to be made in our current recycling rate, and there are a whole range of reasons why the recycling rate is not as we would wish it. And to cover some short-term recycling options that we want to introduce, pending what will need to be a fundamental review of the service following the government strategy which has been published. I'm very conscious of time, so I'll try and make this crisp. The strategy itself is 136 pages long, so clearly we could spend an awful lot of time going through the details. So I'm going to pick out some of the key highlights, but clearly if members wish, they could read the strategy in full. So I suppose I could summarise the new strategy by saying it's 3 words really, which is reduce, reuse and recycle. So very much a theme on trying to get maximum life out of materials, to try and stop people using materials which are non-recyclable at source, and put a greater emphasis on the producer of the materials to actually deal with the costs of recycling. So it's a fundamental change in terms of the way that we're expected to operate. There's much in the document that is yet to be established in terms of detail, and much of it is also still to go through consultation. However, the position we are in, we feel we need to act quickly in order to remodel our service, and we think many of these things won't change as part of the consultation. It will be just some matters of detail. The government are also looking to move the way that we deal with recycling and waste collection more in line with the policies that are already in place in terms of Scotland and Wales. And there's a link on the presentation to the DEFRA website which links you through to the strategy. So, there's a number of things I wanted to run through. The first is what they call the Collection Consistency Framework. It's a grand title, but essentially what it sets out is that they're expecting all local authorities to have a collection regime which fits into one of these regimes. So, on the right-hand side of the slide, you've got what's called commingled with separate food. So that's effectively the recycling material all together in one collection regime with food collected separately. This is the closest of the 3 models to what we've got in Kirklees now, but clearly we don't collect glass and we don't have a separate food collection regime. There is then what's called 2-stream, where again you have a separate food collection regime, and you have 2 different streams of recycling collected. And then you've got what's called multi-stream with separate food, where effectively you separate out at curbside all the various recyclable material to reduce contamination. You have a separate food collection, and that's the sort of direction that the government are leading us in terms of trying to increase our recycling rate. So in terms of the national strategy, there's also something what's called extended producer responsibility. And this essentially is about putting more of an onus back on the producers of packaging. So trying to get them to pay for effectively the cost of recycling and dealing with those materials at the end of their life. So there's potentially a source of funding for local authorities as part of that regime and their recycling regime. Again, we don't know what the detail of that will look like, but I think generally we would welcome that, because that will help drive a change in the way that packaging is produced. It will make producers think more carefully about how they package their goods, which will lead to a greater recycling rate and less waste. It's also likely that the consistency framework I've outlined will be a requirement to be able to get funding in relation to the producer responsibility. So again, it's a lever to make sure that we deliver our service in a certain way. There's also some other things which are interesting. So deposit return scheme. Again, the detail isn't out, but essentially the cost of the deposit is included in your purchase price, and you get that back either by a redeemable voucher or a money return. So we'll all remember, I think, the days of when you used to take a glass bottle and get your deposit back. It's that sort of idea we're effectively returning to, but a bit more sophisticated. Common in many European countries, and again, I think will help drive behaviour. The government is saying that the separate collection of food waste is mandatory by 2023. Why would we want a separate collection of food waste? Well, again, significant impact on recycling rates, and also what tends to happen is you get contamination of your recyclable material by food. So separating that out has a double benefit. Food waste in this country costs something in the order of £20 million a year. For us, it costs us about £1 million a year in terms of dealing with food waste. So not only do we want to collect it separately, clearly we also want to minimise the amount of food waste that we have, especially as there's a direct link as well in some of our poorest communities in terms of food waste. So I think there's a number of reasons why that makes sense. As the slide said, that's subject to consultation this year, but we're expecting that isn't going to change, just the details around it. There's also the review of the regulations, so the waste carriers licence and controlled waste regulations, without going into the detail of those. That's largely all focused on being able to deal more effectively with waste crime, which again I think was something that we would very much welcome. There's also a review of how recycling is calculated. So separate dry recycling and garden waste is something that features as part of this as well. Garden waste collection service, again, there's going to be a requirement that local authorities put something in place around that. It's currently very common. Many authorities have such a regime, differs across the country, but it's going to be a requirement of the regulations going forward. And incineration tax. So whilst we have a low recycling rate, because we have the PFI contract, most of our residual material is incinerated. So if we don't fundamentally change, not only will we be penalised for our low recycling rate, we'll also be taxed on the amount that we incinerate. And because we have high contamination rates and a lot of our material is therefore not recyclable, it goes in the incinerator, we have capacity issues there, and ultimately some material then gets landfilled and we get charged for that as well. So there's a whole range of reasons why we want to significantly increase our recycling rate. Again, that's subject to consultation. We don't know what the detail of that will look like, but we're confident that it will remain as part of the regulations going forward. There's also reference in the document to something called Green Brexit. I think we've probably heard every other version of Brexit. Soft, hard, none. Green's the latest one. What this is to do with effectively is to do with waste markets and how the Brexit will potentially affect those. We've already got a situation here where our Suez, who we have our contract with, are rejecting quite a lot of our loads due to contamination. They're being a lot more picky about what they accept because there are the actual recycling market is a lot tougher. So they're reacting to that by actually rejecting a lot more loads that we have. So the impact that Brexit has on that, we're yet to see, but it's recognised in the regulations that there may well be an impact. Also looking to review all the performance indicators around waste. Again, I think that's sensible. If we're moving to a new regime, then clearly we need to have new indicators in place to make sure that we measure our performance appropriately. Whereas at the moment, it's not a level playing field in terms of how recycling performance is measured.
And as part of all the various consultations that are going on, they will then look to effectively take account of all that and reissue the national strategy in 2023. So it's a 25-year strategy altogether that the government are looking to introduce. So what have we been doing in Kirklees? Well, we've been doing some things that we think are very positive. So we've got a pilot project ongoing in Ravensthorpe where we've been looking to work with the community around saving money and reducing food waste. And now Councillor Mather is due to go out with the crews very shortly and work with them firsthand in relation to how we do that. It's been quite well received, and I think something that would perhaps look to roll out further. We've also done some doorstep targeted education, so when we do get people that are regularly putting material in the recycling bins which isn't recyclable, then we do some door knocking. We try and help and support people in terms of getting them to recycle more. Obviously very resource intensive, and what we've tended to do is focus on areas where we know we've got the highest contamination rates. School education programme, so we do work with schools, limited at the moment in terms of the numbers, but clearly if you're wanting to affect people's lifestyle changes and behavioural changes, you want to do that from an early age, and children are often the best peer pressure with their parents because they take projects home and they actually pester the parents into putting things in the right bins and recycling more. So we found that's very effective. It's fun for the pupils, they really enjoy it, and it's a way for us to get these messages in at an early age. And we've had a number of community events as well where we help people, advise them around recycling, about food waste, advise them on recipes. And again, it links a whole range of agendas, so not just recycling, but clearly links into the health agenda, food poverty, and is a way for us to get out and actually talk about other issues when we're engaging with residents over recycling. So, we think there are some short-term things we can do. In terms of completely remodelling the service, we have a waste PFI contract which runs to 2023, fundamentally changing the way we deliver our collection and recycling service will require investment, it will require vehicle changes, staff and culture changes, and all that takes time. You can't switch a switch on overnight and fundamentally change what you do. So there is a lead-in period to all that. But we don't want to rest on our laurels and continue to see a declining recycling rate. So the first thing we're proposing to do is to do more green bin monitoring and focused recycling education across the district. So as you can see from the pie chart, over 42% of the waste in our green bin is non-recyclable. A big part of that is contamination. So mixing the food waste in with the recyclable material. And probably what a lot of people don't realise is that you can be a resident on a street and be absolutely exemplary in terms of your recycling, and the rest of your neighbours on your street are not, and then the whole load is classed as contaminated and isn't recyclable. So there's a real important message, I think, in that around getting people to understand what they need to do, working with them to recycle correctly. And that's led with us to having, say, lots of rejected loads at transfer station, which has ended up with more waste in landfill, and that costs us around £500,000 a year. So there's a really big financial incentive to that. In order to do this effectively, we will need obviously additional resource, and we're focusing again on those areas where we think we will have greatest impact. We're also looking to put additional resource in terms of working with the schools, so we can approach all the schools in the districts and not just a handful. Chargeable garden waste collection service. Now, this is what we call an opt-in service. So this is if people choose to have it, they pay for it. So it's not across the board. We've had quite a lot of residents approach us actually requesting this service. Many local authorities do it. It's quite common now, and that's the direction of travel in terms of service going forward. We've anticipated that with the resources we're looking to put in, that 13,000 households is the sort of a target area we're looking for initially, and we're reasonably confident that we'll get a good take-up for this service, because I say it's something that the residents have particularly asked for. And we can do this now rather than wait for the fundamental service review, because it doesn't have a huge impact in terms of the vehicles that we use and the resources we've got. So it will require some additional staff to do this, and we're looking to do that on an agency basis. We're also looking to do district-wide Save Food, Save Money workshops and events. So I've mentioned the Ravensthorpe trial where we got money from Sainsbury's, about £35,000 to do that trial. And we're looking to roll that out and do a lot more. So community classes, events, again working with schools, and actually helping people save money as well as improve recycling and reduce contamination. So that's just an example of some of the things we've done in terms of workshops where we provide demonstrations, support, practical help, recipes and those sorts of things. So that's the sort of thing we think we can do a lot more of. I mentioned schools, so school education programmes. So again, really well received, and we're confident that that will have a big impact. Probably over time rather than initially, as that helps change culture change across the borough. And we're also looking to introduce home compost bins, wormeries and green cones. Again, we've had a lot of requests for this. This is more around, I think, again, behavioural change rather than having a significant initial impact on the recycling percentage. And in order to encourage take-up, we're going to be looking at doing this for 4,000 households, free to participants, but to be a monitored trial. So we'll want to go check and work with the residents in terms of how they're using them, what impact it's had, and we will hope that that will be well received. Again, it's something that people have asked for, so we're confident that that will be well received. So that was as much as I wanted to cover this evening, members, just in terms of some of the highlights and some of the things we're wanting to do in the short term. Clearly, this is the start of a debate rather than the end of it, and we'll be having further conversations in terms of what the service needs to look like going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl, for that presentation. Councillor Sheard, please.
I say I welcome this review, but I have got reservations about it, obviously. I think we've got to be careful that recycling is not used as an excuse to not to reduce consumption, which is the real problem. I think the fact that, and it's not, I don't think that the recycling, as far as environmental impact, it should be thrown onto the cost of local ratepayers by making expensive things to collect it that solves people's conscience when they're taking their Chianti bottle down to the glass bank in their 4x4. That is not what we're talking about. We do need government action. The State of Oregon 20 years ago insisted that every drinks container, whatever it was, had a returnable deposit on it. That made the industry decide that they've got to do the recycling themselves. If you go to Austria or Germany now, every supermarket has a recycling thing which you get to put your deposit back on your bottles. It shows that it works because the government showed the way to tackle carrier bags was to start charging for them. That had a massive impact on waste plastics in carrier bags. Sweden, I think it's, I'm not sure it's Sweden or Norway, one of them decided that they've told the manufacturers, you will use a plastic that is recyclable, not all the different things that you can't recycle that makes all the waste so bad. So I don't think recycling should be used as an excuse to try and reduce consumption or to put it back onto the producer of waste to start reducing waste. Can I just say, as far as food waste is concerned, in our house we have no food waste whatsoever because we have a compost bin and a dog. Andy, yeah, and me, yes.
Thank you, Councillor Shipp. Councillor A. Pinnock, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to thank Carl Batsby for his presentation. It was really very interesting, and although we said it was a quick run through, it you know, one was able to pick up exactly what he was driving at. I've got some comments that aren't necessarily connected with each other. The first one relates to incineration. Now, when we had the incinerator, sorry, I probably shouldn't call it that, but waste to energy plant or something. But when that was put in, one of the selling points was the fact that it would produce energy, and that it would also not produce toxic or noxious gases from the top of the stack. Now, I don't know what the situation is in relation to that. anymore because in theory, incineration seems like quite a good idea in some respects, because so long as you can control the what comes out of the flue, because you're not taking up landfill. That's one point. The renewal of the contract, given what the government is saying about all of this, can we do anything about the contract before it comes up for renewal, in order to comply with what the government wants us to do? Because I mean, there are a number of things that I think are inadequate at the moment, and I was going to mention this green bin monitoring. To some extent, we ought to turn that on its head and monitor the grey bins and see if there's anything in the grey bins that could be recycled. And I, for one, am rather confused about which sorts of plastic you can recycle. People will probably know that there's a diamond on a diamond-shaped thing on the bottom of a lot of plastic things with a number in the middle, and that will often tell you what can be easily recycled or not. I'd like some more clarity on that, and also to see if there's any way of getting stuff out of the grey bin that shouldn't be there. Bottles, deposits, yes, I think that's brilliant. Any German supermarket will have one of these things where you push the bottles in and you get a ticket to tell you what it's worth, and then you can use that to. Yes. Well, all right. As part of your shop, and finally, I happened to be watching Countryfile on Sunday, and there was a very good piece about contaminated plastics, specifically the plastics that were used for wrapping hay and straw. And it is very difficult to recycle them. There are only 2 plants in the whole country, one in Scotland and one in Bristol, where these are being turned into pellets and then other plastic things. This is clearly an important issue. I know our agricultural sector is not huge, but there are plenty of agricultural workers, agricultural industries here which will produce plastics like that. And we really ought to try and get rid of the problem, because one saw pictures of huge piles of plastics on at Killingholme. Yes, that's right, on Humberside, where there's a whole airfield which is full of this stuff, and they can't get rid of it. So anyway, I'll shut up now.
Thank you, Councillor Pinnock. Councillor Murgatroyd, please.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to say I agreed with a lot of what Councillor Sheard said about how important it is about cutting consumption and reusing, but I didn't agree with the bit about the dog, to be honest with you, because I don't think our cat would appreciate us getting one, whatever the environmental benefits. So I just wanted to just make a couple of very brief comments and then ask a question, really. Because it does seem to me that, for a variety of reasons, financial, legislative, but we actually have to kind of look at this issue thinking beyond the borders of Kirklees, because so much of this is becoming a global problem. And, I'm sure a lot of us have seen recent documentaries like Blue World and so on, and it's very sobering, actually, to when you realise how much the kind of decisions we're making locally impact globally in terms of climate change, in terms of plastics in seas. But obviously, because stuff that's recycled is often being exported to third world countries. And part of the reason there's a crisis now is that China is actually refusing to take any more plastic. So that isn't feasible for the future. So I just so there's a global, wider dimension, but I also wanted to ask really about a more local kind of issue, because I'd just be curious to see what his thoughts were about actually looking at this in more regional terms and possibly thinking about potential partnership working with other neighbouring local authorities. Because it does seem to me that there's got to be a lot of potential, actually, for partnership working, for regional approach, because a lot of this stuff is so open to economies of scale. And if we could, forge relationships where we could share costs and so on, that's a potential win. And there's also, of course, potential wins in terms of if we can get successful recycling in terms of local, it ties in actually with the local wealth building agenda as well, because there's potentially kind of, small-scale local businesses perhaps could also tie into that. So I guess my question really is, have there been any discussions on a West Yorkshire basis about kind of, pooling resources around recycling, reuse and reduction? And are there any scheduled moving forward? So that was what I was asking, really.
Thank you, Councillor Murgatroyd. Carl, would you like to respond to that?
Yes, I picked the first issue first about regional working. So we've been working with an agency of DEFRA called WRAP, which is Waste Resources Action Programme, who look across the UK in terms of recycling and options. And it's quite common for local authorities to actually have disposal arrangements outside of borough. So if you look at things like, and forgive the technical term, anaerobic digestion, which is a bit like a giant composter, then some of our material goes to one outside the borough now. And one of the things we'll have to look at is we'll have a number of authorities, because we all start in a different place, don't we, with this agenda, and there will be capacity issues in terms of the existing facilities to deal with waste in a more sustainable way. So I think inevitably that drives conversations around, are there economies of scale when authorities can join together to provide facilities they share? So we've had some initial conversations with our neighbours around what their regimes are looking like. But because this strategy has only just come out and we've only just got clarity on direction of travel, we've not really explored those in great detail yet, but clearly we're going to. There was also a question that Councillor Pinnock asked around plastics. So in the strategy, there are 5 key aims, and I won't go through all of them, but we've got eliminate available plastic waste over the lifetime of the plan, so that's a government aim. And we've got that all plastic packaging should be recyclable, reusable or compostable by 2025. So there's a real push on the producers to significantly reduce the amount of plastic waste. And there's what I mentioned earlier, which was around the producers of this material effectively being charged in terms of the disposal costs, which is clearly going to drive them to use more sustainable forms of packaging rather than what they do now. And there is an issue, as you said, in terms of the markets we've got for plastics at the moment as well, which is also something which is causing us concern. You asked about emissions. They're controlled by the Environment Agency in terms of the incinerator, and it's regularly maintained as part of the contract to ensure it complies with the emissions regulations. And just an interesting stat that's in the document in terms of emissions, which is, I think, pertinent to the motion that will be discussed next, is that food and drink accounts for 1/5 of greenhouse gases. So not just in the production, but obviously in terms of waste and non-biodegradable material being put in landfill sites. So as has been mentioned, reducing the amount of consumption and waste can clearly only be a good thing in terms of impact on climate change. I think those were...
Thank you, Carl. Councillor Lawson, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And thanks to Carl and officers for bringing the presentation to us today. I've been spending time with the new waste strategy update from December, and he's managed to bring quite a turgid document to life. Thank you. So before I talk about the subject, though, I'd like to talk about my increasing concern about how these key discussions have been run this year. There's a couple of things we need to be clear on. First, this is not an agreed subject of discussion where nobody else had any input. into what this discussion was going to be. It's not clear whether it's come from officers or whether it's come from Cabinet or the Labour Party or where. It's just dropped from the ether. Nowhere in the run-up to the Council or in the agenda is there a report prepared for councillors to digest before this discussion. There's been no offer of a briefing to groups beforehand, and no information of any kind has been circulated among us. There's been no parameters set, no directions set for this debate, and that concerns me. We even requested supplementary information on the subject. The answer was that there was nothing available. Personally, I think that the way that these important issues have been treated cuts out valuable insight from members across all parties, and I think that our council is poorer for it. It's not good enough, and it needs fixing. That said, we're here now, and I'll put my two pennyworth in. Responsibility for waste management lies at every level of society. That's agreed. We all know that now. There is a personal responsibility to make our choices as carefully as possible. Stay away from single-use plastics. Be aware of how much waste we produce, if that's food or packaging, household items that go to the tip and so on. But we can help that as a council by providing information, and we can help with education. We can help with initiatives that aren't directly linked to waste management. Things like public drinking water fountains, cut down on single-use plastics, provide clean water to the public, make it easily available, get those plastics out of the system. The same with segregated litter and recyclable litter in public places. If it's manageable and if it's meaningful, then let's investigate it, let's do it, because it goes to the other end of the system and makes savings there. There are responsibilities on all levels of society, as I've said. The one on national government is to set the bar on statutory requirements. We have this new strategy in place. It's very detailed. There's lots of advice. There's lots of evidence in it. And I think we should be looking to this as a framework for the future for our own activities in waste management. The Liberal Democrats stated as far back as 2017 that we should be using 90% collection of food waste. That's what we should be aiming for. It's ambitious, granted, but I think it's up to us to put pressure to raise those bars for ourselves and to make those ambitious targets for ourselves. And then there's us and our responsibilities, the mucky bit in the middle, the council. Our waste contract is up for renewal in a few years, and it's overdue. It hasn't done what we needed it to do for a few years now. And a shorter contract might be something that we look into the next negotiation just to make sure that they stay relevant over their lifetime. It's easy to make a shopping list from the public for that contract. As councillors, we're told every day by residents what they want. Maximise what we can recycle, include everything that we've been talking about every day and tonight. I like what was said about the producer responsibility, but let's not forget our further responsibilities. Make sure we know where the waste goes once it leaves the authority. Where does it end up? What are the working conditions like? And how far does waste have to travel to its end destination? If we're serious about waste management and our green credentials, let's take them seriously. It's going to hurt financially. Let's dig deep and make sure that any contracts that we make, any arrangements we make, are worth every single penny. And I'd like to end by the residents of Kirklees have been ready for change for a long time, and they're ready for the challenge. And I think we have to ask ourselves as a council, as councillors, and as a workforce who work for the council, are we ready to? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lawson. Councillor Patrick, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If we are to achieve all these new measures, and I do hope we can, we have to be able to collect the waste in the first place. And in my ward, we're still missing bin collections regularly. On some rounds, for example, Underbank, Yew Tree Lane and parts of Home Bridge, residents reporting collection missed for as long as 10 weeks at a stretch. And that excludes the Christmas shutdown. There is still, I understand, some unrest in the workforce with industrial relation problems that have not been resolved and need to be addressed. Can we have your reassurance that bins will be collected on time? If we cannot collect our grey and green bins, how will we manage to collect food waste and other waste? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Patrick. Councillor David Hall, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First of all, I'd like to support some of Councillor Lawson's comments. I'm sorry he's left, but never mind. I'm sure he'll watch it on catch-up. I'll tell him. And that is that I really think this deserves a lot more scrutiny because it's very important stuff. It's going to cost us an awful lot of money in the future. And actually, I thought that presentation was very, very interesting. And I think it would be nice if, as 69 elected members, we could spend longer actually looking at the detail of this so it informs them of some of those decisions which Cabinet will have to make in the next year or two. And I really feel that perhaps we do a catch-up session on this at some time, perhaps the Chief Executive to take that back. I also welcome what's been said about the collection of food waste. That's excellent. Good ideas. I'm not sure about wormeries. I have a feeling that Mrs Hall will not appreciate a can of worms on her kitchen table. Although the kids might love it. I think the kids would love it. The third thing just to say is that we've got this waste contract which is up for renewal. We're going to have a new contract and we know that's coming up. And as I understand it, the idea was that some of the MRP money, that's this money we saved on putting by a provision to pay an interest costs, would be put aside for this increased cost. That was what I was told at the time. So, are we putting that aside? Are we going to be facing a cliff edge on this contract in 3 or 4 years' time? Are we putting that... I mean, I'm not stupid enough to ask the Cabinet to reveal its negotiating strategy in advance. Did you see that was a Brexit reference? Did you get that? But, having said that, it's going to be darn expensive. And we need to make sure that when it comes about, we have made provisions for that. That's probably a question for Councillor Turner, maybe. So maybe somebody could just take some of those questions back and enlighten us, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Councillor Cooper, please.
I'd like to commend the idea of wormeries to Mrs Hall. Wormeries are marvellous things. We've got one in our cellar. And the great thing about it is that... obviously, you pull your food waste in there and you create soil, but you can actually literally extract the worm urine from the very bottom and then put it on your garden. It's just so good. So yeah, we got all these sort of milk cartons full of yellow liquid in our cellar. It's great. Anyway, there's a bit of an issue, I think, with obviously going forward with the contract that we've got, and I think one of the issues we have is this sort of thing between plastic recycling and the fact that plastic is a high-energy hydrocarbon. And you look at this and you think about the companies that are operating these contracts for us, and they're there with all this high-energy hydrocarbons, and they're thinking, am I going to transport this up the road to Tyneside to go who knows where, maybe the Philippines or wherever, or am I going to burn this stuff, which is much easier for me, and I get some money out of it for electricity. And recycling can be a very good idea, and then recycling cannot be a good idea. The point that Councillor Sheard makes is excellent. You know, we need to be reducing the amount of rubbish that we actually produce in the first place and change the fundamental nature of our society. I remember when I can remember when we first got the incinerator going down at Leeds Road, and I was told, no, Councillor Cooper, it's not an incinerator, it's an energy from waste plant. And I said, actually, it's an electricity from waste plants. You're not doing anything at all with all the heat. And we have tried for years and years and years and years to try and get CETA to do something, now Suez, to do something about the heat and work on that. And we've stumbled again and again to do that. Maybe we'll get there one day. So there's a real concern there. And if we actually do get there and we do not actually recycle the plastics and the incentive is to burn it, are we doing the right thing? I'm actually doing the right thing, burning all that plastic material in the first place. So one of the key things I think we need to be doing is working with other local authorities to get best value, to try and give us the opportunity of getting a better deal with contractors than we've got at the moment. And that's a key thing. Interest in the trial. 4,000 houses, I think, is a start. But what we're trying to do here is encourage people to be better citizens. And I think in terms of what they do with their waste, I think we've got to look at what the incentives are for that and what we can do to incentivise people to be better citizens and get involved in that. And I think I'd like to help more with that. And you could do the trial in Newsham. I'd help you.
Thank you, Councillor Cooper. Councillor Walker, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. For a number of years, we've talked about the importance of working with partners in our community and co-production of strategy and the delivery of services. And I think we should recognise that this is an area where there are lots of opportunities to put this into action. A key success factor is changing the behaviour of households and the behaviour of businesses. And if we're going to do that, I think a key thing is to involve them in formulating the strategy and making it work. I know that there is already enthusiasm from right across the community, from a range of organisations and individuals, in terms of looking at some of the key issues that were outlined in the presentation and thinking about how we can tackle them. We've already started some initial discussions about putting an event together to begin exploring these. I hope that we will be able to support this, and I hope that we will be able to build this into a long-term relationship where the Council's working with the wider community to ensure that working together becomes the basis for delivering a strategy that will really work. Alongside that, I think we should also be working much more closely both with businesses and key organisations in the community, such as the Health Service and the university. This will link in very much with the kind of work that's been undertaken in terms of inclusive growth and the work that's been undertaken by Kirklees, looking at developing these kind of partnerships. There are other things like the partnerships with other local authorities that are very important, but I think our internal partnerships within Kirklees are absolutely crucial.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. Councillor Watson, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you to Mr Battersby for that presentation, which I found quite useful. There was a lot of good stuff in there. There's a lot of objectives, a lot of thinking about what the right things to do are and so forth. And that obviously has to be absolutely right. That must be how we're thinking and how we must be looking forward. But I would also say that I think there's an element that I've not heard tonight so far, and that is very important to me, because issues relating to waste services and refuse are probably one of the biggest issues that come up in my post back in Denby Dale. And the point that I would make is that actually we need to remember that what this is about service. It's a service to the customers, the people that pay for this service. And I think we should remember that service is what is actually received rather than that which is delivered. And what I mean by that is that we might think we're doing a great job. We might think that we're doing superb things. We've got some really high ideals. But at the end of the day, if the resident who is receiving that service does not feel that they're getting a good service, then we're not achieving our aims. So that has to be kept in mind. So, every now and then I hear things like, are we going to move on to 3 weekly bin collections and things like that? And when I'm asked those questions, I say to the residents, as far as I'm aware, we're not. There are no plans for that to happen, and I'd appreciate some reassurance on that. But at the end of the day, we have to absolutely focus on the service. And you may remember that at the last council meeting, I asked some very, very specific questions on the refuse collection service over Christmas. And the resident who gave me that information, which those questions was based on, has again been in touch with a copy of an email that they sent to the Cabinet member, to which they're still waiting a reply. And I think this sums up sometimes how much people do feel very strongly about this service. So I'm just going to read it out to you. I watched your reply to my local councillor's question re refuse services, and that's in parentheses, in speech marks, and was astonished by the utter rubbish you came out with in response. A 24-day interval between black bin collections is not a responsive service, and that's what people are looking for. They're looking for a good service. Had we lived in Leeds, our collection would have been moved forward a day to 24th of December or back a day to Boxing Day. That is responsive. When more food waste is potentially being produced, and we do compost our vegetable matter, knowing we had a 10-day extra gap over Christmas really doesn't help at all. A weekly food waste collection, as in Leeds, something that we've talked about tonight, regardless of whether it's a black or green week, and in many, many other places, is responsive. I believe the food waste is composted. That's up to date. Monthly garden waste collection, spring, summer and autumn, is a responsive service. Cheap is not necessarily the best. I seem to recall when we lived in Leeds, it was a Labour council too. They can manage a decent service. Why can't you run one? And the thing that keeps coming throughout that email all the way through is responsive service, responsive service. It's meeting the demand of the customers. And whilst we have these very, very important objectives set out in the strategy and so forth, I would counsel everyone to bear in mind that the only reason we are here and the only reason we are talking about this is to deliver a service to the residents of this area. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Watson. Councillor Pandor, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Firstly, thank you, Carl, for the excellent presentation. With officers like yourself and last time we had Rachel, such talent that we've got in this organisation, I think we should appreciate it, and we need to start using it more. So well done, Carl. I really appreciate that. Madam Mayor, one or two points that's come out. The direction for this strategy has been set by the Cabinet. We as the Cabinet are fully committed behind this, and it's our role to actually make sure that the ambitions are actually raised, and I welcome Councillor Lawson's observation that the ambitions are big, and as we move forward through the budget process, the budget becomes more clearer. And the beauty of having an overall majority is we can actually be bold and ambitious, but it's really great at the same time to actually hear in this council chamber that you want to actually engage with us, and we will do that. And I don't make no qualms about that. And let me give you a few examples. We are going to try and put some place-based working back into the organisation, and that is where local leadership will be very, very critical. And we are working up the details around that, and that will be coming to full council hopefully in the very near future. But again, that will require budget amendments, reprofiling our budget, and actually making sure that we actually start to put stuff back in there, which actually not just saves the planet, sort of speaking, but make sure that we actually deliver the services that we should be delivering. The other thing I want to mention, Madam Mayor, is one of the key statistics that came out for me when I heard the presentation that Carl gave was the amount of food that we waste. Most of the rubbish that we put in our bins is food waste. Whilst at the same time, we hear across the globe that people are actually dying of hunger and there's no food. So that actually is a moral obligation for this council, and we need to actually resonate that in our communities, where we actually start to actually make them understand that wasting food is not good for the environment. It also links into our anti-poverty strategy. If we can actually get people to work with us in terms of using the food more effectively and buying the right food, it actually has a knock-on effect down the road. The other thing that I want to mention, Madam Mayor, is better health outcomes. If we can actually start to understand how our communities are actually eating and the kind of food that's actually going to waste, we can actually have a multiple-pronged strategy to actually make sure that we actually just not address the waste issues, but actually we actually address issues around deprivation, around health inequalities. So there's a lot of work to do around that. And the last thing is, Councillor Hall, you mentioned a budget. I just want to reiterate that it will be fully costed in our budget. And from what I'm hearing, you're going to support it all. So it will be not just a Labour budget, but a council budget again. And I look forward to working with you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Pandor. Councillor Kay Pinnock, please.
Councillor Pandor, this is not a strategy. However good it is, it's an ambition, not a strategy. If it was a strategy, we would have had some numbers attached to where we are now and where we need to get. And that was missing. And unless we have that, we can't regard this as anywhere close to being a strategy. The second point I want to make is this. It's actually quite depressing. 20 years ago, when the then Labour Council, majority Labour Council, signed off on the PFI for the waste-to-energy plant, there was ambition, which was largely fulfilled, for separating out waste, getting recycling figures up, and getting people to think about how they got rid of their waste. And that has been on the decline in the last, 8 years or so. And our figures in Kirklees are a disgrace for recycling. So there's nothing at the moment that we can be proud of. The third and last thing I want to say is about trust. Recycling doesn't work if there is no trust by the people who are doing the recycling that it is going to actually be recycled. So when residents see the bin men emptying green bin recycled waste into the grey bin lorry with gay abandon, trust disappears. And folks say, should we bother doing that again? Well, on the other end of the issue on trust is what happens to the recycled products. So when we know, as an answer to a question to Councillor Andrew Pinnock last time, that the plastic waste is exported to Vietnam and Poland, is that right? Do we want that to happen? Is that really recycling? And, the problem is not here for that. We ought to be putting pressure on our MPs and on the government to get a proper government strategy for getting recycled industry up and running again. So I'm not blaming the council for that. But unless we have and think about the recycling strategy from the household right to the user end of it, then actually we're not recycling. We might do our figures good, but we're not saving the planet. And I hope that as part of a proper strategy that we get before us, we have a real discussion, as several people have said, that will be one of the issues that we address.
Thank you, Councillor Pinnock. There are actually only 5 minutes left for this discussion, so I'm going to bring Councillor Bolt in, the last member to speak, and then I'll ask Councillor Mather and Carl if they just want to round up. Councillor Bolt, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Picking up on something that Councillor Pinnock mentioned there, yes, we should be looking at numbers. And looking online, the numbers that we can see, for the last published figures, Kirklees' recycling fell from 30% to 27%, 17% below the national average. We were cited as being the 25th worst borough in the country for recycling. So those are numbers that we have to keep in mind. Bearing in mind the decline, the falling rate of recycling, I would like to ask Carl or Councillor Mather how realistic the target of 57% recycling by 2025 is, how achievable it is. We need to be looking at that. It's great having ambition, having figures, but they've got to be realistic. Because we need to look at a holistic approach to this, that in order to increase our recycling, we need to see proper planning policy so that community bring sites are included in new retail developments, so that people aren't having to drive further to get rid of things should they wish. Carl mentioned that waste goes out for outside the district for anaerobic digestion, and we'll be talking about environmental impacts later. I'd be interested to see how far we have to take it and what the environmental and carbon impact of that is, because we have anaerobic digestion plants within this borough. When I was a mayor, I was invited to attend a visit to one in the Denverdale ward. I'm sure there are others around. So why are we exporting waste outside the borough at a no doubt cost in financial and environmental terms. We need to look also at why we were recognised in the past for being an exemplar in recycling. In 2006, when we took over the administration from the Liberal Democrats, we'd started to make the change over to alternate week collections. At that time, on the news, it was regular pictures of places, I remember Scunthorpe, where people were throwing bags of waste at the lorries as they were going down streets. And, Madam Mayor, I'd like Council to note and credit the work that Steve Noble did by bringing in an excellent programme for bringing that in phases. We didn't have those people running down the street throwing bags of rubbish at our waste collection. What we had was TV documentary crews coming into the material waste facility, looking at it and holding Kirklees up as an exemplar of recycling. Yes, we could do more there. There were still things that we were unable to recycle. But certainly then we didn't have the low rates that we have. So we need to be looking at that and finding out what we can do. And it's already been referred to. I think I was probably maybe just coming on to Council when John Harman was commissioning, if you like, the waste-to-energy facility. And as it's being already said, we get electric, but the district heating element, which was one of the big sale points, never came off because we couldn't link to the housing estates, and the stadium and the facility were at the wrong sides of the road and we couldn't run pipes across. In 20 years, we haven't managed to improve that. We haven't found anything that would link in to that. So again, we need to be looking at that because it is wasting. It's a waste plant and it's wasting the heat capacity. We're getting some electric, but we're not getting the full benefit. And I hope that in getting this waste strategy, as Councillor Pinnock says, we'll see how we've learned from those mistakes and how we can reverse this declining rate of recycling.
Thank you, Councillor Bolt. I'm going to ask Carl to come back in first to respond, and then Councillor Mather. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I mean, I suppose, sort of opening comment, you know, it's probably the only service the council delivers that affects every single household in the borough. So, you know, no surprise that actually every member in the chamber is very interested in what this does. And I think Councillor Watson and Councillor Patrick, I think, issue a fair challenge about the fact that we're doing this because to provide a service to the customer. I think Councillor Mather, in her opening remarks, was clear that the service does need to change and improve, and we're not pretending that the service is an excellent service that we provide. What this does, however, is provide a real opportunity for us to completely change and remodel the service to take it in a different direction, and that's something we fully intend to do. Again, that will take some time, but we need a bit of a run-in for that in terms of before we fundamentally change the nature of the service. Trust on recycling, I think that's a very fair point around looking at the full impact of our recycling, the sort of carbon footprint in terms of where our material goes. Some of it goes outside Burgess because of pure capacity, and we'll have decisions to make about whether we invest in facilities in borough to reduce our carbon footprint and deal with waste more sustainably. That's to come. Point around whether this is a strategy. Well, we're presenting the government's strategy tonight, not our waste strategy, and clearly we have a lot more work to do to define what our individual strategy is, and that will include what we think are realistic targets to aim towards the government's targets that they're setting us. Clearly we've got a very steep hill to climb given our current recycling rate, and it's something that clearly I'm not proud of, and ever since I started I've been very clear that we will have to significantly improve our recycling rate. This will require significant investment, and that point was raised. However, do nothing is not an option because there will be significant financial penalties if we do nothing. And we will also, before we even make any investment, there's a significant financial impact on the cessation of the contract we've got with our current supplier. So, yes, significant investment, but I think probably less than the financial impact if we do nothing and continue as we are. Could we do something earlier with our current supply before 2023? Well, those discussions are ongoing at the moment about what the contract looks like, whether there's an opportunity to extend. If so, could we change things earlier? Again, those discussions are ongoing, and we'll clearly have to factor that in to anything that we do. Cheap, not necessarily the best. Absolutely agree. We've got whilst we have a very poor recycling rate, we've got a very high diversion from landfill rate, and we've got a very cheap contract, which is why any investment is going to seem like a very large amount of money, because the service is costing us a lot less than our neighbours, but clearly is not the service we wish to provide to our residents going forward. Energy loss. I know the concept of a district heat network has been on the books for some time. We've recently submitted a bid to government for funding to get to phase 1 of what a Huddersfield heat district network would look like, and that would link into what our new service looks like in terms of our waste contract as well. So we think we've got a strong business case to get investment through the first stage, and that's something we'd very much wish to do. Links to wider strategies such as planning policy, absolutely right. So the way we design our new estates and whether we have communal facilities for waste is something we are looking at, and we've got a number of supplementary planning documents we will look to produce once we hopefully have an adopted local plan, which we're hoping we'll have shortly. So it is something on the radar and something that's been actively discussed. And I think the last point I've got on my list was around, well, 2 points. Incentivisation. So there are schemes out there. So there's one called Green Redeem, which incentivises residents to recycle more and effectively gives credits that can be then used to spend on local community facilities, which links very clearly into our place-based strategy, which we are developing. And the last was about public involvement. Clearly, it affects every household in the borough. There is a massive communication strategy that needs to accompany this, and an educational strategy, again, which will have to run over many months as we work with the community and work with them rather than do to them, if we're going to have the maximum impact as part of this strategy. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. Councillor Mather, please.
Well, what can I say? My thunder's been stolen by Carl. Thank you for everyone contributing to the discussion. It's a beginning, by no means is it the end, and most of the points have been noted. And what I can say is the service will be scheduling briefings with all parties to take place as soon as possible in the coming weeks. The intention of the briefings is to include views from all parties, informing the best way forward for Kirklees residents. And I'm urging that all members make the best use of these briefings and in order to pass on your views. Now, I've actually made notes. If I could go from Councillor Kath Pinnock, about this is not a strategy, and Carl has said it isn't, and we'll be working hard this year to formulate our own strategy. What we did today was actually share with you the government strategy. The reason why are we behind? We fell behind.
Sorry, Councillor Mather, I need to just ask you to be quick.
Okay.
Speed up, talk faster.
We're behind because the government delay of 2.5 years. This requires significant investment, and we need to ensure that we were focusing and moving in the right direction. Can I just say, I've got notes for all of you that contributed to make more, to give you more pointers. And if we're running short for time, I'd just like to thank you all, and we'll come back when we're further down the road. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Mather. And thank you, Carl. Moving on, please, can we go to agenda item now number 20. Motion under Council Procedure Rule 14 as to climate emergency in Kirklees. Councillor Murgatroyd, please.
Yeah, thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Emergency is a strong word, and when we tend to think of an emergency, we tend to think of flashing lights, high-vis jackets, and lots of drama. And it's a very human thing, I hope, that when we experience an emergency, people kind of instinctively drop what they're doing and try and rally round to help. So I think we have to ask why, really. as a society, as a species even, we have been so slow to react to the growing climate emergency. And I'd suspect that that's because this emergency is of a peculiar and perhaps different sort. Firstly, it's taken centuries in the making. It's been a long, slow burn as industrialisation has released unsustainable levels of greenhouse gases into our atmosphere. And secondly, changing weather and climate patterns are not always easy to see, especially as the warnings of climate chaos to come, even if they're made by authoritative voices and scientists, apply to the decades in the future. But finally, and I think this is the key point, I suspect that the problem of climate change has been so difficult because what it's actually asking us to do is to rethink so many of the basic assumptions that we've taken for granted in our lives about our economy, the food we eat, the way we use energy and travel, about what it means to live a good life. And in our consumer society, we're encouraged to measure personal happiness, often in terms of ownership of stuff, rather than in terms of personal and human relationships. So, there's rarely been a thought maybe to sustainability and long-term consequences. But clearly, the time for delay and prevarication is now over. The future has arrived, and as the introduction to this motion points out, we have now reached a moment of decision. Do we ignore the warnings, or do we face up to our responsibilities? And if we do that, then that means we actually have to take the sort of radical changes in the way we live, produce and interact with nature that are needed to really meet this emergency. So, this is a timely and I feel very welcome motion indeed. And what I'd like to do now is just go through some of the key elements contained in that motion, and particularly the action points. Now, the first and obvious point is about leadership. The motion unashamedly recognises and states that there is a genuine climate emergency. And in doing this, the leader of the council, Councillor Pandor, but also the leaders of most of the other party groups, that's Councillors Lawson, Cooper and Greaves, I believe have shown real leadership by prioritising it. And this matters because we are an authoritative voice, the elected representatives of this community, and in a unique position to get the message out there. And it matters as well because there are still powerful vested interests and voices that want to minimise the importance of this emergency, or even worse to my mind, to spread a message that actually there is nothing to be done, that man-made climate change is somehow inevitable. And maybe because climate change is a global problem, it's someone else's problem. I think, secondly, the motion shows leadership because I'm hoping it's going to set in train a process whereby we, as a council, can set an example. We're setting out here on a path where we can get our house in order, in better order, build on the good work that's already begun. And in the motion, you'll see that there's an environmental audit is contained as an essential first step. And I would suggest that it's important that this is kept highly focused to avoid unnecessary drag, because time is pressing and we don't have the luxury, or I think if we're going to be honest with ourselves, resources and officer time to undertake a massively detailed, minutely calculated measurement of every aspect of our work. And instead, I'd suggest a broad-stroke, common-sense audit should seek to identify greenhouse gas emission hotspots and areas we need to change as rapidly as possible. And in the meantime, the motion contains a clause where we're going to create an all-party councillors' working group. And the motion sets out a very clear remit to report back within 6 months with clear, practical, sensible solutions that will make a difference. So the emphasis is on practicality. Moving forward, the motion also tasks officers and elected members to take environmental considerations in mind when developing new policies. And this will help embed environmental good practice into all our areas of work. And finally, we recognise that it will be necessary to work at both a regional and national level to achieve our goals. And so these are all welcome steps forward indeed. But I just wanted to say this. Passing a motion here, however well meant, will of course not in itself address this emergency. If this process, this conversation, is largely an internal one, I believe it's unlikely to secure the sorts of radical change we need. We're going to need to reach out to really make this work. And in particular, as the motion says, it's essential that we engage with and listen to experts in the field. And that's partly because so much of the process of change will be highly technical in nature. Climate science and the measures that we can use to address it is a fast-moving and dynamic discipline. And one of the people who made the deputation, I believe it was Ali Stouffer, on the delegation, pointed out that sadly many predictions about the pace of change and the sorts of measures that could be effective have proved to underestimate the scale of the problem. So we've got to keep up with the science. And I'm pleased that built into the motion is an assumption that we will upgrade our targets as a council with the UK's international commitments. But more important than that, I just want to kind of echo what Councillor Walker said about the issue around recycling. We've actually, if this is going to be real, we've got to recognise that real change is only going to come about if it's rooted in the communities we serve. This cannot simply be a top-down process. It cannot be, especially, about moralising and preaching at people without actually incentivising change as well, as far as we can. So we've got to engage constructively with individuals and key anchor institutions, with schools, colleges, businesses, voluntary groups of all sorts. And again, that is built into the motion. Listening to their concerns, listening to their voices. Because not only should we put environment at the heart of our policy making, but we as a council, and I've heard it said so many times in the brief time I've been elected here, but we've also at the same time committed to promoting social and economic equality in everything we do. And I just wanted to make what I think is quite an important general point about how we,
1 minute, Councillor Murgatroyd,
as a society, should respond to climate change. We've got to challenge the idea that this is a middle-class issue. This is actually an issue that is going to affect working people most of all, because the great tragedy of this climate emergency is that the poorest people who've done the least to bring it about are actually the people who are probably going to pay the highest price unless we do it right. So, and that's true globally as well as in the UK. So to conclude, now is the time for a shared sense of purpose. Now is the time for a can-do attitude, to draw upon our best qualities as human beings, our intelligence and our capacity for reason. Let's move forward in the knowledge that it is irrational to ignore the facts, however inconvenient, but it's irrational to believe that this earth, our only home, can endlessly be sustained. So please, could you vote for this motion? Thank you.
Is that seconded? Thank you, Councillor Coopers. Councillor Murgatroyd did say earlier on in his speech that time is pressing. We've got approximately 25 minutes and there are still 2 more items that we must discuss this evening, and that's before we go back to item number 17. Okay? So There are some people who want to comment on this motion. I'm having to use my discretion again because it was quite a lengthy list. So if I do not call your name, I apologise. Councillor Griffiths, please.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I believe that the events of the summer of 2018 awoke many more people to the danger presented by global warming. We saw on television that hundreds of people died in wildfires in Greece and California. There were an unprecedented number of wildfires inside the Arctic Circle in Sweden, which probably accounts for what the Swedish school children are up to now. And here on our doorstep, Saddleworth Moor blazed out of control for weeks, while firefighters from several counties and soldiers fought the fire. The predictions of scientists on global warming have, if anything, proven to be over-optimistic. 10 years ago, scientists thought that ice-free summers in the Arctic would occur in the 2080s. Now they're saying that they'll happen in 2030. Councillors, you may suspect that your constituents will ask, what has all this got to do with me and Kirklees Council? And it is undoubtedly true that globally the poor nations will suffer worse and first. But Kirklees people will feel the pinch when crops are destroyed and food prices rise. Kirklees people face rising costs of home repair and home insurance. And Kirklees people pay more than they should to keep their homes warm. On the other hand, if we act now, our constituents will benefit from cleaner air, warmer homes, healthier lifestyles and longer lives. Time is short. We owe it to our children and grandchildren to take action now. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change has given us the facts about global temperature rises. We don't lack information. All we lack is political will. And I would ask colleagues to follow Bristol, London and many other authorities, support this motion and the consequent measures to improve the environmental impact of our council.
Thank you, Councillor Griffiths. Councillor Munro, please.
Madam Mayor, thank you. I'd just like to support this motion. The need to take action on climate is more urgent and more immediate than ever before. I understand one of the reasons for this is that the destabilisation of our global climate has progressed much more quickly than scientists previously thought. We see evidence of it every day on our televisions, a warming climate, tragedies across the world in terms of rainfall, avalanches, parched earth, famine. I share the belief that rises in global temperatures will have a devastating impact on not only our lives, but every aspect of life on Earth as we know it. I believe it's therefore vital that a strategy is in place along the lines of the one in our papers this evening. It's important to reduce our carbon footprint in Kirklees, improve our recycling rate and bring this issue to the forefront of the minds of residents and all stakeholders across Kirklees to take effective action before it's too late. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Munro. Can I just tell members that I have closed the list for anybody else putting their names. Councillor Cooper, please.
Firstly, I'd like to welcome this motion to declare a climate emergency, and I thank Councillor Murgatroyd for his initiative in bringing it forward. It follows on from a number of other motions by councils around the country. The first one in Bristol, introduced by my Green Party colleagues, and this has been followed by a number of others, including Stroud, Scarborough, which is Tory-led, and more recently Bradford Council last night. It is also now a global phenomenon, and even councils on the other side of the planet in Australia are passing similar motions based on the call to action inspired by the IPCC report. We have limited time to act, and national governments are not acting nearly fast enough. I was at the UN climate talks in Katowice, Poland, last month, where on behalf of the EU Committee of the Regions, we were calling for national governments to work in partnership with local authorities to address climate change, pretty much like we're talking about here today. So a quick question to fellow members. How many emails, memos, calls for assistance with the Paris climate goals have we in local government received from national government since it was signed over 3 years ago? Okay, it's zero. There have been none. We are the people with the closest links to communities who can mobilise action quickly, who have strong links with the wider public sector and business. If we are not properly valued by central government and involved in action to address climate change, then we will fail. Passing this climate emergency motion is an important first step, but it will be meaningless if not followed up by meaningful action. And I know recycling is an important issue and does have a relationship with climate change, but it is somewhat bizarre that it is the only specific aspiration mentioned in this motion. There is a lot more we can do. In July this year, Government announced that we could set our own energy efficiency standards in our local plan and that, crucially, these could be higher than those set in national building regulations. On Monday, I visited the Navarre region of northern Spain, where local authorities there are building 524 passive house accredited homes for social rent with no right to buy. It was inspiring stuff, the people on the lowest incomes having good standard housing with negligible fuel bills. It was good to see such strong leadership. It is not an isolated story, and around Europe we are now seeing tens of thousands of such homes built. In the UK, we have leading authorities like Norwich and Exeter doing some successful groundbreaking work on passive house developments. In Kirklees, it's been a bit slow. The Passive House report, produced by the All-Party Task Force, they probably reported about 2 years ago, and it's never been responded to. Now, I know some positive work on standards is being pursued, but we'd like a strong statement on what our policy actually is in this area to guide officers and show we really are a leader in this area. Similarly, with the use of electric vehicles, we're well behind a number of other local authorities. We now have 3. I'm told by the Examiner that we have another 17 planned. Leeds City Council have got 200 electric vehicles. We need to do more. We have been at our best one of the most leading green authorities in the country when we have been at our boldest. When we were the first council in the country to provide households with a universally free insulation scheme, we won the prestigious Ashton Award, recognising our pioneering work in energy efficiency. When we finally decided to pursue a solar programme on council homes, 5 years too late in my opinion, we won the Solar Installer of the Year award. We shouldn't chase baubles for the sake of it, but recognise that fortune favours the bold. We need to ignore the naysayers, those who urge caution based on outdated or just wrong knowledge, and ignore those who will never take a risk until they have all the information they feel they need. Why should we take this approach? Because it is a climate emergency and should be treated as such. We don't have time to come up with perfect plans. We should be guided by what has worked well for others and take informed risks when we need to. If we heed the advice of dinosaurs, we will go the way of dinosaurs.
30 seconds, Councillor Cooper.
Action on climate change is a great opportunity for this council. New skills and activities that can bring communities together, not simply saving carbon and energy, but money as well. Let's pass this motion and act decisively, not just for Kirklees or do just what others have done before, but to provide the direction and leadership on climate action that is lacking in our country. Support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Cooper. Councillor David Hall, please.
My applause has started already. Yeah, it's my warm-up, my applause. Like the curate said, this is good in parts. I can support some of it. There are other bits of it I am less enthusiastic about. I'm not disagreeing with climate change. It's happening, it's happened, it's been happening for years. I could agree with the Council considering environmental impact as part of any new policy. That makes sense to me. Let's just get on with doing it. The Cabinet can make that decision. Seeking to collaborate with other local and regional authorities on emission reduction, fine. That sounds a great idea. You know, Cabinet, you're in charge. Just get on with it. And what Councillor Cooper said about local government working hand in hand with national government, that makes perfect sense. Let's hope everybody gets on with it. I do have some reservations, however. First of all, paragraph 2 does commit the Council to some revenue expenditure, I would have thought, and I'm surprised it got past the legal officer in that regard. So we will need to see that in the Labour budget, if that is to be carried out. A full environmental audit of Kirklees is one hell of a piece of work, and I would imagine will cost many thousands of pounds. If you'll forgive a rather facetious comment, the target of 55% by 2025, half an hour ago it was 57%. So that's not going in the right direction, is it? How do we... It is cheap, but it was a good job. But actually, when you think about it, the point that Councillor Bolt made is important. Is that achievable? Where have we got that figure from? Is it too high? Is it too low? We ought to be told. And then item 4, I am not in favour of setting up another councillors' working party. I have to say, I think we are going to be drowning in working parties if we're not careful on this regard. Councillor Murgatroyd hit the nail, get on with it, and it can be scrutinised via scrutiny like every other policy is. And if he does that, nobody can complain. Perhaps we can argue if it's the right policy or not, but that's the way it should work when we've got an administration with a majority. So, no, I can't support some of it. I will support other bits, and therefore I will be abstaining on this report.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Again, with restraints on time, can I ask that we move straight to the vote, please? So, using your consoles, please can you vote now? Thank you, members. That one is carried. Please can we move swiftly back to item number 10? Item 10, page 23, council tax, empty property premium. Councillor Turner, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It seems to be the norm in the last few meetings. I'm sort of the last act, and I'll be trying to be as quick as I was last time. So, Madam Mayor, thank you. This is the report into the empty property premium. We have touched on this in a past council meeting, but this evening I am asking council to formally approve the report before us this evening and adopt the policy. We all know we have a shortage of homes not only in Kirklees but nationally. It can't be morally right that homes sit empty when so many of our residents need a place to call home. And if by adopting this policy we are able to alleviate that shortage, albeit probably in some small way, given the scale of the problem, it has to be the right thing to do. Of course, there is a financial risk to the council, but I believe that this risk is acceptable. However, this risk may not be as great as it would appear in pure financial terms, as we know that a place to call home allows residents to bring up families, better health outcomes, and improves educational outcomes for children. So whilst we may not be able to calculate these benefits in pure financial terms, I'm sure that the potential positives that may be achieved for our residents is worth the financial risk. I suspect that most of us will have empty homes in our respective wards that are empty and run down, that make streets look untidy and unloved. So if these empty properties are brought back into the market, it has the added benefit of benefiting our existing residents. The table on page 24 shows the scope for bringing homes back into the market. As you will have noted, those who've read it, we have 677 empty properties that are classed as long-term empty. And the huge majority of these are Band A homes, which is just the type of home where we see the most demand. So by hopefully encouraging these back into the market, we'll be helping to address the biggest area of demand and help those of our residents most in need. This is one of those rare occasions, and I mean one of those rare occasions, in recent years where I'm able to welcome new legislation from central government and fully support it. However, it would be remiss of me if I did not thank one of our members who also sits in another place and has done a lot of work on this legislation. So credit where it's due. Thank you, Councillor Pinnock, for your work and commitment to this very worthy piece of legislation that has the potential to help those of our residents who don't have a place to call home. Thank you. Madam Mayor, I move that Council approves the recommendations as set out on page 26, paragraph 6 of the report.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. Is that seconded, please?
Yes, Madam Mayor. I'd like to second that. Reserve the right.
Thank you, Councillor Pandor. Please, can I ask that we move straight to the vote? So, using your consoles, please, can we please vote on the recommendation? Turner. Thank you. That is carried. Item number 11, page 29, calculation of council tax base. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Pandor, please.
Move CPR 16.3 for item 18 and 19 to just go to the vote at the end if we don't run out of time.
Sorry, we've only got about 6 minutes left, so can we just carry on with the item that we're on, item 11, please, at this moment? Yeah, yeah, okay, so Councillor Pandora, second that. Councillor Turner, you wanting the right to reply because we do need to move to the vote?
No, I'm on next item 11. Come on, keep up, Madam Mayor, keep up. Madam Mayor, again, thank you. This is the annual report for the council tax base calculations, which enables us to set a budget for the next financial year. Bearing in mind I wrote this afternoon. Now, try as I might, I have not found a way to make this sound exciting or to grab the interest of those of you who don't like this sort of thing. It is, after all, a calculation. So, Madam Mayor, I move that Council approves the recommendations set out on page 33, paragraph 7 of the report.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. Is that seconded? Thank you, Councillor Pandor. Please can we move straight to the vote? So using your consoles, please vote on the recommendations moved by Councillor Turner. Thank you. That is carried. So moving to item 18, motion to period dignity. Councillor Zaman, please. Are we just going to do? We're going to do them. Yeah, we're going to do them. Okay, Councillor Zaman, please.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to move that to a vote.
Thank you, Councillor Mann. Is that seconded? All right. Yeah, thank you, Councillor Richards. So using the consoles, please can we vote on this motion? Thank you. That is carried. We're going to do number 19 and then 17. So, item 19, motion of the Council Procedure Rule 14, leave policy for elected members. Councillor Mather.
All right, let me speak. I stand to move the parental leave policy to a vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that seconded? Thank you, Councillor Donovan. Using your consoles, please can we move straight to the vote? Yeah. Thank you, members. That is carried. Item 17, motion under Council Procedure Rule 14 as to giving people a final say on Brexit deal. Councillor Law.
I'll move this to the vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lawson. Is that seconded? Thank you, Councillor Cooper. Using your consoles, please can we move straight to the vote?
Where were you, River? Where were you? Where were you?
Okay. Thank you, members. That has not been carried. Members, it is almost 9 o'clock. Can I thank you very much, particularly for the respect you have shown to each other and to particularly... Hang on. Just want to say thank you for the respect you've shown to each other and particularly to those who attended with deputations this evening. Thank you. The meeting is now closed.